It is 5 a.m., everyone. It is Friday morning, April the 1st, and it's not an April Fool joke. 2022, good old 710 KNUS, the voice of the people. I'm Peter Boyles. One last time. As I said last night, this is the time, this is the moment the cowboy rides away. Weather forecast is always high in the 50s, light rain. We're in the View House, I-25 at Arapahoe Road. What a great place and what a lineup of stars. We're waiting to kick the show off with the Vice President of Salem, the one and only Phil Boyce. We work together at KHLW Radio. Danny Hopkins is on the show, Robert Spencer, Tim Furnish, David Smith, Mark Pearson, Rick Lewis from the old Fox Morning Show. Mandy Connell's coming on the show. I got a nice text last night from Ross. Dick Wadhams is on the show. Trimba's on the show. Don Wrege is on the show. Lee Larsen, Dan Caplis, the hitman, Joe Williams from Westward, the one and only Mike Roberts. Dave Logan's on the show. Tancredo's on the show. And some hidden surprises. So we're going to stand by right now for the big boss, and then we'll roll into Danny Hopkins, who really gave me my first break in radio, and we'll tell those stories. But Casey is here, and of course the bosses are all here. Kelly Michaels is here, Brian Taylor's here. One and only Mike Boyle, who really helped put this together at the View House. And of course, again, and Billy, who has done yeoman's work on doing this. Again, we're in a standby to kick this puppy off, and we will have the vice president of, they say spoken word, which is really the inside term for talk radio. And it's been a long, interesting time, and I've had a long time, as you probably know. If not, I had what's called a TIA, and it's a mini stroke is the best way to say it. It's this that happens, and it happens when blood cannot flow into part of your brain, and the TIA only lasts minutes. I was on a radio show when it happened to me, and I started speaking in tongues, and it lasts, minutes, or some of them, and I've read quite a bit. And the good part of it is I've come out of this apparently unscathed, but it doesn't cause any lasting damage, and it's still important to get immediate medical care. And I really want to thank Stephen Tubbs and Ellen Graham, and of course always with Billy Thorpe. But after the event happened, and if you were listening to it, it was kaboom. It was really an interesting experience because I tried to explain it like it was like back when I was, again, as an alcoholic and an addict, when I was in the middle of my disease and the causes of my disease, and it would happen. You just go kind of, and a lot of people understand this, where you think the words are coming out, but they're coming out backwards. And I spoke a foreign language, I think Norwegian. I think I was speaking Norwegian on the air. And Billy, God love him, comes in and says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And George Brockler came in and rescued me. And I walk out in the hallway thinking I'm just going to go to the gym. And in the hallway were 4 or 5 paramedics. And if you recall, it was a snowstorm day, and they put me in the back of the ambulance, took the sled ride, and I went over to, and it's just an incredible place, the Medical Center of Aurora. And they would put me in the ER, and I went through all the testing, touch your nose, can you spell your name? What time is it, what day of the week is it? Give me all, touch your nose, do all those kinds of things. Then they put me in they're just scans, they put you in the scan, and they ran me back and forth in the scan. And then the first physician came in, and she said, "We can't find any sign of anything that happened to you." And I said, "Okay, fine." And they said, "We're going to keep you overnight." And I said, "All right." And then I had to do, which I just always feared, is to go into the tube, and that one scared me. And I got, the next day, they gave me the Michael Jackson drug, and I went into, and had that done. Came out the other side of that, Dr. Spencer, my neurologist, and they came in, and it was a Friday afternoon. We're still sitting there, my kids are waiting to take me home. And again, I can't tell you how great the Aurora, that Medical Center of Aurora is. And they said, "Look, you've had an event, although we can't find any sign of it. In other words, there's nothing that we can see that says that you've had it, but we know you did, and the sort of major causes of it." So in true fashion, I got a text from the radio station, "Are you coming back to work Monday, or would you like us to get a fill-in?" And I said, "I think we better talk." And so Monday morning, I was in my boss's office, Brian Taylor, along with Kelly Michaels, and and Mel Ferguson, and they'll all be here. Brian's here now, and Kelly's here now. And I said, guys, I think I'm gonna quit, resign, whatever the terms are, and call it a day. And we got Phil. We got Phil up. So we can go back to that story. It's 5 minutes after the hour. I have spoken twice with this man since this began. You talk about going back in time. Ladies and gentlemen, in New York City, the vice president of Salem Broadcasting, and we worked together in the Petroleum Club building in downtown Denver at KHOW Radio. What a career he's had. Ladies and gentlemen, Phil Boyce. Boss, good morning, and welcome to the View House in Denver. We getting through to him?
Yeah, hello.
There we are. Hey, boss.
Getting the connection. So I think, but can you hear me?
Phil, we're having a hard time on our end. Billy's giving me the bingo. What year were you working at KHW Radio?
I was at KHAL, let's see. That was, you're asking me tough questions. I have to work my brain this early. 75, maybe, right in there. Yeah, I think that's right. I was there for about 4 or 5 years. I was at KIMN for, I think, 7 or 8 years.
Hey, boss, are you on a speakerphone? Because we're getting a blowback.
Yeah, let me see if I can turn this off.
Yeah, please do that, and we'll...
Is this any... Yeah, I turned that off. Is this any better?
Yes, it is. Much better. Thank you. So we met, it was in the Petroleum Club building, and it was downtown 16th and Broadway. How old were you then?
Boy, I must have been in my probably late 20s.
Yeah, and you grew up. You're actually a Colorado kid. Your roots are here.
I grew up in Pueblo,
yeah.
And it was a great place to grow up because if you want to go into radio, there were like 11 stations for 100,000 people, so there were plenty of jobs. And I started at 14
wow.
at KFEL, which was a kind of 1,000-watt AM daytimer. And my Sunday school teacher took me to the station, and I started to hang out there. And pretty soon they hired me. And I don't think my voice had changed yet. I was still sounding like a girl, but they didn't care. And I think there's a tape of me doing a newscast there where I'm talking about the Vietnam War.
You know, when we look back, and Phil and I talked, I got to tell you how important he's been for me, especially coming to work at Salem. But we always intertwined. I always knew where he was. I know he was in New York, and Martino's coming on the show later this morning to say goodbye as well. And Tommy goes back a long way with
good.
Phil. Yeah, goes back a long. I mean, you see the lineup of stars that are showing up for this, and I thought to myself, when you left Denver, where did you go?
Yeah, I went to Detroit.
Yeah. And then from Detroit.
I was at KHAL. They let me go, kind of a budget cut. We had the third owner in 3 years, and they just decided they didn't need a high-priced news director. And so it was actually Lee Larsen, a good friend of ours, yours and mine.
Yeah, he's on today.
Who recommended me to ABC in New York. Don Balukas was the president of ABC. And Lee called him and said, I've got this guy here in Denver. They just let him go, and he's really terrific. I almost hired him as my program director at KOA. And he's good enough to program any of your stations. You ought to hire him somewhere. So Don did call me the next day and flew me out to Detroit to be the PD at WJR, the #1 station in Market 6. And I didn't think I was nearly qualified enough to do it, but they didn't care. They hired me. And it was a great run there. 4 years in Detroit, and then they moved to New York City. For 14 years, I was the program director of WABC, the number one news talk station in the nation.
Wow. And you're the man, when people talk about making a move, you brought Sean Hannity. I'm crowing on you here, but you brought Sean Hannity onto radio, and you fired Bob Grant. How much heat did you take for that one?
Yeah, there was a lot of heat for that. We lost half our listeners overnight. Bob was incendiary and would say things that would get people in trouble. And, some of the things were borderline racist. I don't really think he was a racist, but he would say things that would infuriate. You think about the left now. Well, he would say things that would infuriate the left then. And, we were bought by Disney, and Disney had no tolerance for controversy. Of course, look how Disney is so woke now. I mean, it's probably a good thing that they ended up selling radio and being out of part of the business. They still own ABC, but they sold WABC back then. But at that time, Bob was an icon in New York City. He had like a 7 show, which was a very big number in New York. And they made me fire him. I don't even think I could tell him when I called him in to fire him that I choked up. And he looked up at me, and I had a tear coming down my cheek. And he said, "You look like you're trying to fire me." And I said, "Yeah, I am trying. I'm not doing a very good job of it." And as I said, half my listeners walked out with him. He went across the street, and so he competed with me at WOR. Yeah. He was hired over there by a general manager named Barry Crowley. Well, guess who works for me now? Yeah. Barry Crowley is my general manager in New York City.
Phil Boyce is here, vice president of Salem, and he's been tremendous to me. And, of course, this is the last song. But how many years have you been into business now?
Well, let's see, something like 55, something like that.
Wow. All right, so
seemed like a long time.
Because we have this so structured and so tight, and so many people that want to be on the show, we wanted to lead with you. What's happened real quickly to talk radio? I know the importance of talk, and Rush led the way, and then you put all these guys on the air. What's next, Phil? What do you think happens next?
Well, a lot of stations have suffered that had Rush because he's not there. He was the anchor. He was the glue that held everything together. So many of the stations that had Rush, their ratings have suffered. But it's also opened up the door for new, very talented people. I put a guy on in that spot here at Salem, Charlie Kirk, and he's doing gangbusters. He's up against a guy named Dennis Prager, who's been on my company for 20 years. And so I can offer stations either Charlie Kirk, the young up-and-coming superstar, or Prager, the avuncular kind of college professor type. So if you've got different tastes, you can choose a different type of host. So what's happening to talk radio? I think, honestly, a lot of it's going to podcasting. That's a little bit of a concern for those of us in radio. But here at Salem, I started the Salem Podcast Network about a year ago. I put Charlie Kirk there, and I put Dinesh D'Souza there, and those two guys are like the two horses pulling the wagon. They're doing a great job. And another thing that we're doing at Salem is starting the Salem News Channel. So we've got an over-the-top television network. Yeah. We're not trying to get on cable. It's too expensive. But you can watch us now on SalemNewsChannel.com 24/7, 365. We've got a feed. We've got a show.
Wow.
So if you're getting, I think there's a market for what we do, just as big as there ever was. And I think people will find us in all these platforms.
Let me do this, sir, because of time and how tight the show is scheduled. It's 5 hours long. I know we have a project up our sleeves, and I'll give you a call first part of next week, but I needed to say this to you publicly. You took a chance. You took a risk when I got fired at KHOW, and you said yes when Brian Taylor asked about me. And so publicly, I've said it privately, but publicly, thank you from me and from my family and for the last decade. But thank you so much for allowing me to do a live morning show on 710 KNUS, and I owe you. So, boss, thanks.
Well, let me thank you for all the years that you gave us.
Well,
And because I knew you when that happened, I wasn't going to let that incident define you. It wasn't really you. And, of course, there hasn't been any issue since then. So
we've come
turned
close.
out to be a really good move.
We've
well,
come close.
I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
I remember that incident still, and I understand that the guy is going to be on with you this
Yeah,
morning.
he's coming by. We'll see what happens. It's so packed. Listen, Phil, I'll give you a call Monday, Tuesday. We talk. But from me and my family and the staff and everybody, you are the man. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Be safe. 16 minutes after the hour, this is the man who is responsible for the good, the bad, and the ugly. Danny Hopkins, at the time, Danny was running the AAA Auto Club, and I had hair down to my shoulders, and he gave me a break. I know he's going to be down here later to be in person. Daniel-san, good morning, man, and thank you. And it means so much to me to talk to you two live. So, Dan Hopkins, everybody, good morning, sir. We got Danny. I know he's going to be down here.
Here.
Yeah, there you go. Danny, you there?
Here. I'm here. Good morning. Good morning.
You're in the other room. Good morning. How are you, sir? Well, so as I continue to talk, yes, Danny? Yeah.
I'm good. I'm here.
Yeah, I'm good. Danny Hopkins gave me my first break as a writer for the traffic reports. I have no idea why he did it. I think I was probably some sympathetic street creature, and he said, okay, I'll give you a gig. And to you for, as I just said it to Boyce, you know, if you hadn't done what you did, Danny, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. So, man, thank you.
Well, we've been friends a good long time, and I was thinking back, you know, Peter, we were both young men. We were both in our 20s. You're and I are close to the same age. You're a few years older than I am, but we're both in our 70s. We were both young guys in our 20s, and we were kind of making this all up as we went along. So I didn't really feel like I was taking a chance on you. I felt that you were kind of a kindred spirit, and we were going to work out as part of the team as we figured this out together.
Well, I just know that it was Dave Shuey, you, and then when traffic reporters were not coming to work on time, and
Yes.
I took the on-air, and actually it was the morning my daughter was born, and the guy didn't show up the guy didn't show up for work, and I went on the air, and some other things happened, and I convinced you that I could actually be a traffic reporter, and you were kind enough to say go ahead. And I was doing traffic reporting for Cat Radio, Gus Merkus and Ed Green and the late Jack Merker. And Jack Merker said to me during a pause, do you want, would you like to do weekend radio? And I had never been in a radio station in my life because, remember, we worked out of that little tiny booth.
Right.
And
well, it was quite a time. Radio was a great time.
Yeah. We did traffic for we were stealing traffic reports. We can now tell this story that we had from a used junkyard down on Santa Fe, it was a Mercury radio, Danny. I remember it was a Mercury, out of a Mercury. And I didn't know about formatics. I didn't know about any of that stuff. Oh. And you set the buttons on KHLW radio, KOA, and Kim. Was that the three we stole from?
Right, right.
And we had Dick Dillon.
I would say we shared information.
Yeah. With Don Martin, Dick Dillon, and who was flying for KOA? Do you remember?
Art Newman.
Yes.
Art Newman,
who later became, all those guys, they were all became, I finally told Dillon we stole from him, and he said we knew. And we would jump around, and
they knew.
Yeah, we'd write down their traffic wrecks. And then we
Well,
go.
the three of them would share, too. The three of them, even though in competition, they would talk from airplane to airplane, and then we would. So it was all one big network, but it all worked really well. And that was back when traffic reporters were could be a personality. You were a personality as a traffic reporter, and that came through to Jack Merker and to others.
Yeah.
And today, traffic reports are more sterile, I think, and I don't think there'd be that opportunity to be the personality that you were and that you became.
Well, I got to work with Bob Lee. That's how I met Bob. Bob was hosting KOA mornings, and then Tom Shannon, who did the movie on Channel 2 and then did Afternoon Drive on KLZ. You put all these deals together, and I would do traffic reports for Allen Berg. And
Right.
yeah, and you had brokered all of those deals for the Auto Club, and then you let me do the travel and recreation reports, ski reports. And I mean, I was working because of you. Now, I understand.
Well, it was quite a time, and we had, as I recall, it was our friend, the late Don Martin,
Yeah.
in his basement, in his production studio, that you and Bob Lee recorded your demo tape.
We did it in his basement, in his studio. Both of us kicked over, well buttered, as they say, and the tape went to Prangley, and Prangley said, "These boys deserve a morning show, and you let me do it." And I don't know, Danny, I just said it to Boyce, and I say it to you. I know you're coming down this morning for breakfast and meet everybody, but God, I owe you. I mean, I can't begin to tell you and how much you mean to me and how much you opened up doors. And you understood radio. I had no clue, and you understood it. You had been a DU, run the radio station at DU, and you knew what you were doing. And you said...
I'm not sure about that.
Well,
we were both in our early 20s, and I'm not sure we either.
Well, neither one of us,
really what we were doing, but we made it work.
But among the blind, the one-eyed man
I do
is
remember
king.
that, people should recall that you and Bob Lee were on KLAK, which was a little station at 1600 AM, which was hard to listen to.
Yeah.
The signal didn't reach much of the city. At night, it didn't reach anywhere at all.
Well, we killed it.
And you and Bob Lee became the number one station, the number one morning personalities in the entire market on a station that you had to really fight hard to find.
It's pretty true. Yeah, I think about him. I think about, we need to jump, and I know you're coming down. So, and Katie's coming. Steve Katie's coming, and a lot of guys are coming this morning. But Daryl Luby's coming. Kenny Danin's coming. So I'll see you in a minute, Danny, and we'll get a chance. But I got Robert Spencer, and I got Tim Furnish, and Rick Lewis is coming on the show. Mandy Connell, Wadhams, Trimba, Lee Larsen's going to be with us. So it's going to be a whale of a morning. But I'm more saying publicly. I was telling the guys, I want to say thank you publicly to you and to Phil and everybody coming up. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. And to you,
well, you're welcome here. I love you, and I'll see you a little bit. Get on with Jamie, shower, and be there and see you in a little bit.
All right. We'll get a bagel. I love you, Danny. Thanks. All right, we're going to do a turnaround 23 minutes after the R5. We're in the View House off of I-25, Arapahoe Road. It's 5:41, everyone, 19 minutes before the hour 6 o'clock, straightening out some things in the world of technology. Highs in the 50s today, light rain from the View House, I-25 at Arapahoe Road. What a great place, and again, walking down memory lane or up memory lane, and again, talking to people. We had a hard time with Tim Furnish and Robert Spencer. We'll straighten that out. Dan Hopkins is on his way. Again, special thanks to Phil Boyce. But this guy, and I feel as though he's the best friend probably I have in the world of reading history books, and we've never met. At Baylor University, I want to take the opportunity to say thank you to Professor David Smith. Good morning, sir. Thanks for coming on for the final show.
Oh, good morning, Peter. I can't tell you what I'm feeling right now, but it's a mixed bag of emotions, man. I'm going to miss you.
Well, we will stay friends. I just said, what am I reading right now? I went down to Florida to take a little time off, and there's a book entitled April 1945, and it's a history book about, it starts with January, February, March, and April 1945, and actually they stretch it into August. Wow. And it's incredible. I think, and when those things happen to me, I think of David Smith, and I think, wow, Professor Smith, you had done, and I through our lineup of everyone, your first book that I met you was on Audie Murphy, was it not?
Right. That was, we started talking when the Audie Murphy book came out, and we haven't stopped since. And my next book will be out at the end of this year. It's a biography of George Dewey, and I can't wait for you to read it.
Well, what we'll do is I'm continuing to do the YouTube, we call it a shoot, and you get the book out, I'll read it, and then we'll do a split-screen Zoom, courtesy of Mark Crowley in Salem. We're doing the shoots. In fact, we're about 3 or 4 shows backed up, and they've been really remarkable. I don't know what to say in these moments except to say thank you. You have made the show work.
Thank you, Peter. I mean, thank you for talking to me, and thank you for doing what you do. I regard you as an ally in my teaching. I mean, you and I do the same thing. You and I are kindred spirits in that we both have faith that history will enlighten people, and we give our best to spread that news.
And I want to believe it as well. And I listened to somebody say something on a radio show that history does this or doesn't do that. The brilliance of history is you study everything, economics, and you study medicine, and you study military hardware. Everything is under the umbrella. And I think you've always said that as well, that it all, yeah.
We do it all. I mean, I said that to a class just yesterday. I said, I was sort of joking, but I said, science is just science.
Yeah.
History is everything.
Thank you. I don't know what I'll do without you. I'll stay in touch. I can't wait for the book. But you need to know, David, how remarkable and how much a part of the success we've had comes to men like you and men and women like you.
Oh, Peter, you're going to choke me up, man. I'm going to miss you so much.
We'll meet. I promise we meet. I got nothing to do now. I can imagine a motorcycle ride to Texas. I can imagine that. Take a couple of days. And
you come to Texas, and no matter where you are in this state, I will come to where you are.
That's right. What did Davy Crockett say? You all can go to hell, and I'm going to Texas.
I'm going to Texas. There you go, buddy.
You take care. Professor, thank you so much for everything.
Thank you. Love you, man.
Love you, brother. Thank you.
Bye.
Good man. Mark Pearson joins us. Another one of these people that we just meet in the business. We need to break or just keep rolling? Stretch it out? Yeah, Mark will be here. Mark Pearson, we met through, I think he was transgender. He was against transgender males competing against women. As I've said before, you show me the case where a woman becomes a man to fight, then we're going to do something. Priscilla Rod is here, and Katie Monahan is here. And we'll get a chance to say hi to so many people. But Priscilla, of course, co-chair of the Republican Party of Colorado, has become a dear friend. And her husband is this gifted jazz musician, and we've had lunches together, and she's been just a wonderful, wonderful. And when I'm around these women, they're just the best. And I love her dearly. And she came by and gave me a card. You get cards of people. We're going to still continue. We're going to continue doing the shoot. I'll be doing some advertised work, some voiceover stuff, some editorial work. But as I was pointing out earlier, as we kind of stretched this out, a couple of Thursdays ago, about 20 minutes after 8, after Brother Jeff was on the show, I began to speak Norwegian on the radio show, and it's called, they're TIAs, and they're mini strokes. I had one, and they happen when a blood channel flow to part of your brain. A TIA only lasts minutes. And in fact, Joe Williams is coming up on the show. We talked about it. But a TIA may be a warning that you're about to have, let's call it, to have a true stroke. And I think they're called ischemics. And happens when the blood flow to your brain is suddenly blocked, and usually by a blood clot. And it's actually happened. And I'm lucky when I was leaving. And again, I can't tell you how great the Med Center of Aurora was when I was leaving with Dr. Spencer. And he said, there's no evidence that it happened, but we know it did. And that was a real warning shot. And as I was telling the story, we're waiting for Mark Pearson. I was telling the story that I went in to Brian Taylor, who's here, and Kelly Michaels, who's here, and Mel Ferguson, who I believe I can't see. She's either here or on her way. And they said, we got him now. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we jump to the man. Mark Pearson joins us. Representative, it is the Cowboy Rides Away. Mark, good morning, sir. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed this.
we were talking as we billboarded up, that we met you, I don't know how many years ago, and you had introduced legislation to hinder men competing against women in athletics. Is that pretty much how we began?
Yes, it is. And back then we had very, very few examples when people said, oh, this is theory. It isn't really happening. We didn't have many examples. Wow, has that changed?
Yeah. And as I said, can you give me the example of some woman who decides to become a man because she wants to be a fighter or play pro ball or something? I can't come up with that yet. Can you?
Not yet.
I mean,
It's coming.
if I see a woman who decides that she wants to become a man so she can swim and compete against men, then I'll know that it's an equal track, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, I was going to ask, I get to ask the people that I should have asked David Smith and I forgot. What's your end on Putin and Ukraine? What do you think happens?
I've been thinking about that a lot. My guess is that he's going to suddenly realize his generals have let him down, and he's going to move on them. But what he may not realize is they're realizing this guy is, several French fries short of a Happy Meal, and they may come on him first.
You think they turn on him?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, boy, I tell you what, they're in over their heads. And
Well, they are, and I think they will turn on him, first of all, because he's crazy, and they're not, or crazy like a fox, either one. They're not sure what he's going to do next, but they have some ideas. But secondly, I think they're starting to realize they better take him out before he takes them out. He's already done that to some generals.
well, listen, it's the typical, when a dictator runs the show, whether it's Joe Stalin or Hitler or Mao, whoever it is, you can always take out your generals, can't you?
Yeah, yeah.
I need to tell you, we'll continue as, obviously as friends, and we'll connect. And as I mentioned to David and mentioned to Tim and to Mr. Spencer, we missed, but we're going to continue our series called The Shoot, where we do a split screen, and it'll be on a YouTube show with Mark Crowley, thanks to Salem, and we'll continue to do that. And within the next 3 to 5 weeks, how about doing a split screen with us, and you and I will talk about all the different things that you're so good at. So can we?
Well,
yeah.
I'd like to.
Yeah.
And as I tell the Channel 9, that's the only TV station we have here. It's the ABC outlet. Most people watch from Boston's channels. But as I tell Channel 9 here when they want me on, I have a face made for radio.
Both of us. So, but I wanted you.
Good thing we're smart.
Yeah, it's a good thing we get away with that. I want you to know,
Yeah.
as I said to all the others, thank you. You've been a tremendous part of what we've done, and the success that we've had goes to people like you and to David Smith and to Spencer and Tim Furnish and, of course, all the others that are coming on this morning. A quick goodbye, but I wanted you to be part of it. Thank you, Mark, and the best to your family and to everybody else, too. You take care.
Well, I hope not goodbye, but see you soon.
I promise. I promise.
Okay.
You take care, sir. Thank you.
You got it, brother.
All right. So as we do the clubhouse turn, Rick Lewis and Mandy Connell coming up, but I did sort of want to finish this. So I had this incident, and I went into Brian and Kelly and Mel, and I said, I need to get out of the blast. And they were tremendous to me, and I had breakfast with Brian 2 mornings ago, and I'll continue to do advertising voices. I'll continue to do the YouTube with Mark. I'll continue to do, maybe some editorial work. But, there's Dr. Spencer and these guys, they'll tell you, like, hey, it's things like this, and maybe it's time after all of these years. Maybe, like I said, it was a bullet went right by my ear, and I heard it. And I thought, well, maybe that's enough. And it may be a lot of people, young guys pushing up, but it's been one hell of a run. I mean, I've been doing nonstop thinking for, actually, Katie Monahan's here. We had breakfast, and we talked about, what do you do on a last show? And Lee Larsen's coming up on the show, and as you know, Lee, who has been a great mentor to me, and Dean Singleton, and these people who have just said, hey, you know, you're on top. If that's true, I wrote about Rocky Marciano taking the gloves off. And I didn't understand that Rocky was 46-0, 43 knockouts. I was a kid learning how to pug a little bit, and I didn't understand Rocky taking the gloves off until I saw Muhammad and the original Sugar Ray Robinson, original Sugar. And they stayed too long at the dance, and they shouldn't have. We come back. Rick Lewis from the Fox is on. Mandy Connell's on the show. Don Wrege with the final tune. Ted Trimba's here. Lee Larsen will be with us. Mike Rosen sitting next to me. Dan Caplis will be with us sitting next to Mike Roberts, Dave Logan, Tom Tancredo, and he and I are both going through some stuff right now. So it is 5:53. It's 7 minutes before the hour. High in the 50s. Light rain from the View House, I-25 at Arapahoe Road. My family will be here. Billy Thorpe, Casey's here. Brian Taylor's here. Kelly Michaels is here. Priscilla Rod is here. Katie Monahan is here. The whole joint is jumping. Hang on, 7 before the hour.
Peter Boyles Show.
It is 5:59, everyone, jumping over to 6 a.m. Highs in the 50s today with light rain. Radio Free Denver, good old 710 KNUS in the View House, I-25 at Arapahoe Road. What a great place. 7 o'clock, the doors open, and it's going to be, there's folks here already. And it's good to have everybody here. Coming up, Rick Lewis from Fox, he's working on the air. Mandy Connell is going to join us from KOA. Dick Wadhams and Ted Trimba, Don Wrege, Lee Larsen's on the show. Danny Caplis, Joe Williams. We got him, ladies and gentlemen. He is a dear friend. And welcome back. I know he's gigging right now. Rick Lewis, my boy, good morning. Thanks for jumping across and being with us. It means a lot. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Peter. You know what? It's an honor to be on your final show. If this really is your final show, let's keep in mind it is April Fool's today. And if this is an April Fool's joke, Boyles, you're in big trouble.
We have been together. I worked upstairs, and Rick and Mike, of course, worked downstairs. And you were a top 40 jock in L.A. prior to coming here. Do I remember that right?
I did a lot of things in L.A. I was a top 40 jock for a while. I was also what they call an AOR DJ, album-oriented rock DJ at a big rock station in L.A., KMET, the Mighty Met. And I came here in 1990.
What's the lesson of radio? Yeah.
What's that? I
said, I know now the Dave Logan's coming on, and you and Dave now the voices of the Broncos, but what's the lesson for people in radio? You've survived years, and what do you think the lesson is to that?
Well, you know what? I hear you use the term radio guy all the time, and those of us in the business know exactly what that means. People maybe listening don't realize just how competitive this business is, and if you don't hit your ratings and revenue numbers, you're gone. Yeah. And there's no job security in this business. I think it's even more cutthroat than the National Football League. It doesn't matter if you have a contract or not, they will fire you. And so you just have to grind through all of these management changes and program director changes and just kind of roll with the punches. And for me, I think it's you have to be versatile. You can't just do one thing. I think you have to wear a couple of different hats, and that's why, as you mentioned, I was a top 40 jock. I was a rock DJ. I'm doing a rock morning show right now on the Fox. I do a talk show on KOA. I do the Broncos with Dave Logan. I have a band, So for me, it's being versatile where if you get fired in one area of your career, you can pop up in another. And that's allowed me to stay in the game for a long time. Not as long as you, but now, I've been in the game a long time.
But you will be. I mean, it's one of the things, I'm just an older guy, but you got, in the business, they call it having chops. And you have chops. Dave has chops.
And Dave, I appreciate that.
No, it's not.
You know what? I admire and respect what you've done all these years, Peter. And here's one thing I really admire about you, and that's going out on your terms. Not many of us get to do that. Hopefully I get to do that someday. But I just wanted to make sure that you've hung in there, I know, through some tough times and many, many changes, and you're going out on your terms, man. So congratulations.
Well, that's kind. My best to Kathy Lee as well. Rick Lewis, of course, just in about 4 minutes lights back up his own show on the Fox. But true, I mean, there are people that are really, truly radio guys. And, I always said that about Limbaugh. What made Limbaugh great was Limbaugh was a disc jockey. He was Jeff Christie. He'd been fired off of jobs. He had done everything that you had been through and I've been through. And he was a radio guy. And today, a lot of these guys are simply not radio guys. Ricky, I mean, do you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. You always got to be ready for a fight. You have to be. You got to be really durable. Speaking of ready for a fight, I thought about this the other night, Pete. When Will Smith walked on stage and slapped Chris Rock, if you would have been the guy on stage, you would have punched him back. And then Will Smith would have kicked your ass, but you still would have punched him back, right?
Well, tails out of school, there's been more than one time everybody gets their hands up, especially back in those days.
Absolutely. And, and radio guys are kind of like that. Radio guys, we're in for the fight. You can't be soft and be in this business and last as long as you've lasted in this business, man. But
I've seen what you and I have seen, and I've seen things get settled in parking lots and in bars on remotes, and and it kind of was a different era. And you're laughing, but it's true. I mean, you were part of all of that, and so today,
absolutely,
yeah. I mean, we can do this we can do this the hard way. We can do this the easy way. Okay, I choose the hard way. we're both knuckleheads.
Here, one of my favorite memories about you when we were working in the same building. You came in one morning and you told us that you were getting into wrestling. And we were thinking, we said, like broadcasting? You're like, no, wrestling.
Yeah.
I'm going to wrestle.
Yeah, I was wrestling. Yeah.
And you were probably in your 60s at the time, right?
I was in a fight club in Aurora, yeah, after my divorce. I just went out there and got banged on, yeah.
So about a week later, you came in and you had your arm in a sling.
Yep.
Which was no surprise. And you told us you had to go in to get some shoulder surgery.
I did.
For whatever you were doing. I didn't know it was a fight club. I thought it was like some wrestling thing.
No, it was the fight club. It was called the fight club. It's on. I don't know.
Well, that tells you everything you need to know about Peter Boyles.
You're kind. Ricky, I love you. We'll get that breakfast in now, and I know you got to go back and throw a switch. So, to you, and say hi to Kathy Lee and everybody. This really is the man. Survived, and it's tough, and he's good, and the show's great. Rick Lewis, we got David coming up a little later.
Hey, brother.
Thank you, man. Be safe. Thank you so much. It's 5 minutes after the hour, 6 minutes after. Just jumped over. Highs in the 50s today, light rain. We're in a view house. Some places starting to fill up. We got Mandy. We're ready to go. I feel like I know her. I listen to her every day. I wrote a Christmas gift wish for her, and we text each other, but she does mid-mornings and afternoons on KOA radio. And I think she's tremendous. Hey, Mandy, thanks for doing the radio show, and good morning to ours.
Well, Peter, I got to tell you, I am beyond honored that you invited me to come on the show this morning, and I would have been there. But when I heard you were retiring, I was pretty sure that there was going to be wailing and gnashing of teeth and possibly some rioting in downtown Denver because you're retiring. So I wanted to get out of town. So I'm actually on my way to the airport right now to go to Mexico for the weekend.
Good
so
for
I'm
you.
sorry I can't be there in person, but I mean it when I say I'm genuinely honored that you want me to be a part of this last show. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, I got to tell you something about this business and you. When you move to a new city, and I know that, you came from Kentucky, you got to learn the mayor, the sheriff. You got to learn how to pronounce the different streets, and you got to learn all these different things, and who is this guy and that guy and this mayor and that guy and who does television, who plays sports. Lady, you accomplished that. You came. I'm saying this as an acclimate. If somebody said, "Hey, Peter, do you want to go to Louisville, Kentucky?" It would be like so hard to do, and you've done it, and you need to know that you've done the right things.
Now, you know what? I love this place. It's an easy thing to dig deep when you love the place that you've moved to. This was a goal for me, a goal
tough.
city. When my daughter was born, she's 12, about to be 13. My husband and he retired out of Fort Carson, and he said, "Well, I want to go to Denver." And I said, "Well, we have to wait till somebody dies or retires." But thankfully, you had an incident at KNUS that opened up a possibility for me.
Yeah.
So I will be eternally grateful for you.
Great shot.
I appreciate that more than you'll ever know.
God,
So thanks for that, Pete.
What a great lick. Mandy Connell's here, of course. It says, comes on at noon on I almost said 710 KNUS on 850 KOA. You know, I want to say hi to, too, is Dave Lauer. We have Rosen coming over. Mike's going to sit with us. And so, but boy, you got a gun there with David. He's the best.
Well, I got to tell you, Dave is a huge Peter Boyles fan. I'm just across the board, and I am a huge Dave fan. And so Dave has been as much a part of, Colorado radio as you have, but he's been the behind-the-scenes guy.
Wow.
So it's kind of fun to allow him to have that moment in the sun now, to kind of let him have his yayas and have his say. It's been a lot of fun for me to let him kind of have his say as the old crotchety dude on the show.
Yeah, no, he is a gift, and we go back and we always did movie lines together, and Rosen's great at movies. I mean, Rosen's a great movie historian and a buff, but David and I always did Cagney films and Dead End Kids and that kind of stuff. We did it together. So, like I said to you, this Mandy Connell, of course, booling out of town, but and when you came on, when you came in and went to work, and I said to everybody, it's top 40 jocks can come in and back sell a record and time and temp and read from a joke list. You came in and you learned the city, and lady, that ain't easy, especially in a complex place like this. And I think you've mastered it. You've done a really good job.
Well, Pete, let me ask you a question. I appreciate that, but let me ask you a question because, you set the bar very high. When I got here, I heard a lot about what Pete had done and the stories that you have covered and the stuff that you have just bulldogged your way through. And what do you think? I want to ask you this question. What do you think has been the biggest change since you started doing this, other than your own political evolution, which everybody's pretty well documented, just from the perspective of a talk show host? Because I've got to tell you, I've only been doing this I've had my own show since 2005, and there are things about covering the political sphere that have definitely changed for me, and I don't know if it's me or if it's the political sphere. So I kind of want to get your take on that. What's changed since you started doing your first show?
Well, I can tell you this much. I talked to my daughter about it. Women in the business. When I started at Cat Radio, there was one woman, and they called her the girl. And she sat at the front desk and took, I'm sweet, I'm not making this up. And she took phone messages, and she did the logs. And they would say, well, go ask the girl, go see the girl. And today, Chris Olinger, I worked for Christine, Jessica Farias, I worked for Jessica, Mel Ferguson today with us, women on the air like you, women have changed the business in terms of, the face of the business. Other things have been, as you know, when the corporate giants take over and they start to squeeze the lemon, that made it tough. But talk radio, and Rosen's coming with us. Rosen brought a conservative voice on way before Limbaugh.
Right.
And that happened. And now talk radio is a bastion of conservatism. But back when I'm a kid breaking in at BZ, when Allen was alive, and we were all communists. I mean, it was like everybody's a liberal. And no, I'm serious. And I mean, we're all communists. And today, and I think guys like Rosen, led the league. But after the death of Rush, what a voice! Wow, that's all gone. So,
but don't you think that you were all communists and you were on the radio because you were revolutionaries at the time, and there's something revolutionary about holding fast for conservative principles now in a weird way?
Maybe. But remember, I started as a disc jockey, a traffic reporter. I read the news. I'm the radio guy that Rick Lewis was talking about. That we hit to all fields. We were utility infielders. Oh, you want to do this? I mean, I got a great story that. We did a traffic report, and then we did this kind of stuff, and I would tell people I could do it, and I didn't know how to do it. I'd say, can you do? Yes, I can do that. I got a real good story when we have lunch, and I'll tell you how I really screwed the pooch on more than one occasion, and we had, there were fights, there was stuff that happened when the business is raw, and individual people owned individual stations. I've met the owners of Salem once. Have you ever met?
Well, I've met the CEO of iHeart once. So we're in good company. That's really all. But really, I think that's best. I'd rather them not know my name.
Yeah. Oh.
Just keep my name off your desk.
Bob,
that's really my strategy.
I had a great mentor. I had a great mentor by the name of Bob Lee, and Bob Lee, our show was over at 10. He said, "We're leaving." I said, "What's up?" He said, "If they see us, they'll think about us." That's a true one too.
Yeah.
He said, "Let's go to the."
Don't make eye contact. Head down, out of the building. There you go.
And Bob said, "Always, let's go to the bar," and I was always willing. But you have.
Well, you know what? It was for your career, Peter. It was for your career. Working closely with other people, even at the bar, was all part of it.
Oh, it was great. I know you got to make a plane. You have been incredible. We have never met. We have texted each other. We have talked on the phone. Her name's Mandy Connell. I really think, coming into town like you did and then sitting on a 50,000 water, pal, I know Dave's a big part of that, but, stroke goes to you. You take care of yourself. We can now have lunch together or breakfast together. It doesn't matter. So.
Yes, we can. We absolutely can, and I'm looking forward to it. Pete, obviously, you are sort of the fabric. You're woven into the fabric, and you set the bar high, and that's part of the reason that I worked so hard to achieve it, because I wasn't going to let some old guy be better than me. That's what it was.
Yo, Rennie. Thanks. Be safe, lady. The best of your husband. Be safe.
We'll
Thank you.
Soon, man.
All right, darling.
All right.
It
Bye-bye.
is 14 after the hour. Highs in the 50s. The doors open up in about 45 minutes, although apparently it looks like many people snuck in the fire door. We have coming up Dick Wadhams, then Ted Trimba, Wrege, Lee Larsen's on the radio show this morning, who really is the man. Caplis will be here, Joe Williams, Roberts, Dave Logan, Tancredo. Where's Rosen on this list? Is he?
Yeah, he's in there.
He's in there. You know who else? Christine isn't on there, too.
Yeah, she is.
She is? We're talking about when I came into the business. Oh, there she is. Just can't read. When I came into this business, and I worked at Cat Radio, KWAT, the big voice, the Cat of the Rockies. And I got to do weekends, and I did fill-in shows, and there's some stories about that. And there was one woman, today Katie Monahan's here with us. Katie and I worked together. She was a young saleswoman. Now she has her own agency. Priscilla, you would think a woman running the Republican Party. Priscilla's here. And coming up, she will do the radio show, the one and only Kris Olinger. Christine, who went through the Ramseys with me, and I'd be in her office, and she said, "Are you sure you're right?" Yeah. When Caplis is on the show this morning, we'll talk about Lynn Wood, and this is a Caplis moment. Caplis and I are on TV. Lynn Wood is threatening to sue us. And Danny looks up to the camera and says, "Hey, Lynn, bring it." He really did. Caplis has a heart and soul. And Ted Trimba, who I just love, and Dick's coming up, and Wrege. What do you want to do here, pal? You want to bail? All right. Highs in the 50s today. Light rain. The View House, I-25 off of Arapahoe Road. What a wonderful place. I'm going to thank Mike Boyle for that as well. We turn it around one more time, 710 KNUS. With a tie on. It looks like, that's a job interview, isn't it? You got a tape, a resume, and a tie. Stephen Tubbs is here. It's a job interview. Good morning, everyone. 22 after the hour 6. I have to say good morning to my nephews, one in Pittsburgh and one in Boston, Brian and David, listening on 710 KNUS Denver's talk station. This is where the cowboy rides away. High in the 50s, light rain, and the View House, I-25 off of Arapahoe Road. And here's another man who has been so much a part of everything we've done, is Dick Wadhams. And I heard him the other morning. He was on with Jimmy. Dick, good morning, and thank you for doing one more time. Good morning.
Good morning, Peter, and I will tell you, it's been very poignant for me to think that I was on your show when you had your incident. I was on at 6 a.m. that morning, and we had a great conversation, and I was really shocked later in the day when I heard what happened to you later in the morning.
Well, I had no idea it was going to happen, so that was like, I'm actually blaming Brother Jeff. It was like we did a radio show with Brother Jeff in about 20 minutes, and actually Stefan was one of the guys that said 911, something's going on with that guy. For those who don't know, we were doing about 20 minutes after 8, and they're called, they're TIAs, they're mini strokes, and I'm on the radio, and I'd spoken with Dick that morning and Brother Jeff, and then I began speaking Norwegian about 20 minutes after 8, and Steph called, and I went to, again, the medical center ward. It was incredible. There seems to be no evidence that it happened. I went through all the tests and into the tube and the rest of it, but something happened, and that's pretty much I think somebody's trying to say something to you, Dick, when that happens. there's the voice of something, yeah.
Peter, I'm going to so miss you every morning. I mean, you've been such a part of well, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of listeners morning. And it's amazing. I was thinking this morning, I can't think of anybody who, you've never been involved in politics before directly. You've never been involved in campaigns.
No.
And yet you know more about them and instinctively are able to analyze them and what's wrong with them than anybody I've ever known.
Well, it's not that tough here. It's like we're not talking about, the governor of Florida's job. We're talking about Colorado politics. And I think because I lasted so long, when I met you, I think you were running a campaign at the time. Or were you with Owens at the time? What were you?
Actually, we really started talking back in '96 with Senator Allard's first race against Tom Strickland.
There
you
you
were all
go.
over that race.
There you go. That's where we met and that's where we became friends. And
yes.
you have always been, and you've taken a lot of heat, especially, I can share some of that heat this last 12 or 13 months. But boy, oh boy, it's been something, hasn't it?
It really has. And Pete, I know you're not going to get into politics today, but I appreciate what you've been doing the last several months in the aftermath of the 2020 election. Thank you for doing that. And I know you've taken a heck of a lot of heat as well.
Well, as the man said, we will see. I look at November right now. Priscilla's here. I look at November, and frankly, Dick, it scares me. But when Stefan sent me a text on Saturday, I sent him back a text and said, I'm retired. So you'll still be doing the TV gig with us, the shoot, and doing some other stuff with us and some podcasting. But it's just going to be a very tough year, I think. And I think you have jacketed it very well about what you think the future will be. Make a prediction if we were talking, if this was the second Tuesday in November, what do you think we'd be saying?
Well, we should be saying that the Democrats nationally and here in Colorado were in a rout, and that Republicans did well across the board. I still think that could happen, but there is one huge obstacle to that being the case, and we both know what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid I'm seeing in Colorado not only a no subsiding of that charge that the election was stolen, but it's actually increasing, and I'm worried about that.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
We share that. We will see. Leave us with something. We've had a great time over the years. We really have. And you've done a lot of television with us and radio with us. And I don't know, do you have a highlight or a low light that you feel comfortable with?
Peter, do you remember the Stephanie Diaforte U.S. Attorney saga?
Do I ever?
I got to tell you, I had more fun with you in derailing that U.S. Attorney nomination. It was the right thing to do to derail it. And if you hadn't gotten involved in that, and you had me on a lot, I was state chairman at the time, but that was the right thing to do, given what had happened in that previous gubernatorial campaign, and we don't need to rehash all that. But I really look back, and I was thinking this morning that really was a lot of fun, and it was right. It was right.
Yeah, well, listen, when the time comes, and it's not now, but when remember Jeff Sessions was doing the Senate hearings on it, and they called, and I've actually heard from him. He's called him Voris. It's Corey Voorhees, and how that all tied into Stephanie, and how that tied into Bill Owens, and people resigned over that, and there's still people that won't talk to me. But it's like I tried to explain, and Ted Trimpa's coming up in a minute, and Ted and I say, I was doing my job. Well, they hate you. Well, fine, but I was doing my job. And that's the part of it, I think, that gets missed so many times.
That's right.
And,
right.
Corey
I'm
and I...
going to miss you, Peter.
Well, Dick...
On the air every morning. I know I'll still see it.
Yeah.
But I'm really going to miss you every morning.
Well,
I really am.
You have been a wonderful friend, and we'll do the YouTube shoots together with Mark and everybody, and I promise. But, Dick, for all the years, and again, for thanking you for saying that we did make some, I think we did have a couple of times we made a difference. So I appreciate it more than you know. Be safe.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, sir. Our 29 after the hour. Ted's here, ladies and gentlemen. Highs in the 50s and light rain, and we're in the View House, I-25, Arapahoe Road. For one more time, this is where the cowboy rides away. Lots of show memories. I can tell you about this man, and I said, he has become one of my best friends, so I don't have to talk to myself. Ladies and gentlemen, I love no man more. Ted Trimba, thank you, Ted, for doing this. I think you guys may be coming down for breakfast, but thank you for doing the show. Ted, good morning and welcome back.
Good morning, Peter. I'm happy to be on. So this is quite the day for you.
Yeah.
Quite the history.
Yeah, I mean, people have been asking about, are you sad? And I said, no, I'm actually, when I talked to Lee Larsen, who's coming up this morning on the show, we talked about, the Atlas shrugged, when they finally lift the globe off of the back of Atlas and how relieved he is. And it's kind of that feeling that, I don't have to think about the radio show all the time. And I found myself, I don't watch as much news now, and I read more what I want to read. And it's a really interesting feel. You've been politically active for a long, long time. We just talked to Dick, and I know you guys are friends. I promised myself I wasn't going to make this a political morning, but it's become one. What have you learned, again, in the media, manner is a better way to say it, in the media and talk radio, and this is Ted Trimba, everyone, who I think is the best. So that's a question for you.
Oh, sure. Well, I first have to say, Peter, that last night I was having some scotch and thinking about what I was going to say this morning. And I wanted to say something that no one else is going to say, because you're going to get this kind of barrage of congratulations, which you definitely deserve. And that is, Peter Boyles has never had a chafed butt. And the reason why is you haven't run around your life looking for somebody to blow sunshine up your ass. And, the other thing I love about you is you don't chase politicians, you chase women.
That's right.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And occasionally catch one, and then it goes from there. So, no, but you're right.
Yeah, it's catch and release, Peter. Yes. Catch and release.
I have been to this man's home for dinner, and he's a gourmet cook, and you have dinner with Ted. Here's how it goes. You go to Ted's house at 6 o'clock. You eat about 9:30, but you sit in the kitchen. You sit in the kitchen and drink Diet Cokes, and Ted has a glass of white wine. And I said this to him, the reason we've become dear friends is I don't have to talk to myself. I can talk to Ted. And he's had this incredible life, and I just think I just adore him. And then about 10 o'clock and 10:30, the dogs are all circling around, and Ted opens the door, and I go home. And those dinners have meant more to me, just the two of us sitting and you talking. And then he took my daughter and I to Thanksgiving, and you had your whole family for that one. The Nebraska contingent showed up, and you mean so much. You just are, and he's a very decent, kind man. And
Middle America has to stick together.
Well, when I had my TIA, I was supposed to. You set up the speaking engagement that I was supposed to be doing at the Denver Athletic Club, and I blew up on you. So reset that. I mean, I'm good to go. And I got.
Well, I have to tell you, we were all worried about you, Peter. That was a shocker.
You.
And my heart stopped too. I can tell you.
Oh man. Well, I was going. One of the great moments in Kelly Michaels is putting this whole thing together with Billy, and so you get a text message on Saturday. I come over from the hospital on Friday night. Are you going to be working Monday, or do we get a replacement tonight? To my daughter, who goes, "What part of I had an effing stroke don't you understand?" Oh God!
Well, this takes a lot for you. You've done this for so many years.
Man.
And you speak truth to power. And you were talking to Dick about this earlier. And I've said this to you a lot. And there are a lot of people who despise you, and a lot of people who love you, then it's kind of like in politics a little bit. You're doing something right.
Oh, yeah.
And to hell with them.
Sure.
If if politicians wanted to hear what you're going to say, they'd ask you out on a date.
That's right.
And they don't. And thank God for that.
I'll tell you how this works.
So that way you can be who you are.
This is Ted Trimba. Ted was doing a television show, and I was in the booth getting some setup work. And I said, "Is that guy Ted Trimba?" And they said, "Yeah." So the shot was over, and I walked out on the floor and introduced myself. Do you remember this, Ted? And I introduced myself.
Yeah, I do.
And I said, "Hey, man, let's go to lunch." And we went to the listen to me, Peter. We went to the fish company. And I think 3 hours later, we both walked out into the parking lot and said goodbye. I mean, he is, Don Wrege's coming up, Dick Wadhams, and all these different guys. You are a dear friend and a unique friend, and I've seen you work, and there's nobody better. You're just a man.
Well, back at you, brother. I tell you, I love you so much and so glad to have you in my life. Yeah. And I'll say this, I'm proud that you made the decision to put your health before all of this.
Yeah, well.
Because that had to be a really difficult thing to do. I mean, you've been doing this in the mornings for a very long time. And to have you make that decision, I know it's was very difficult. Actually, you and I discussed that a little bit. So I'm really proud of you, and I'm thrilled to have gotten to know you so well.
I love you and Arash very much, and I respect everything you've done. And you do a TV gig with us. We roll into November, but I'll see you. I can actually stay later than 9:30 at night these days, and so.
Oh yeah.
It's like.
Yeah, I'm sorry it takes me so long to get you fed.
No,
I'm sitting there thinking.
To,
for all those elected officials, I could probably poison them and they would be really happy. But, I'm not going to do that.
Theodore, thank you, man. I'll talk to you over the weekend. Thank you, sir, very much. Ted Trimba, everybody.
Sounds good, Peter.
Thank you.
All right,
we're going to pause, and then Don Wrege's coming on, we began Media Horror Productions together. Phil Boyce, Danny Hopkins, Robert Spencer, Tim Furnish, David Smith, Mark Pearson, Rick Lewis, Mandy Connell, Dick Wadhams, and now Ted Trimba. Yet to come, Lee Larsen's coming on the show, Chris Olinger, Joe Williams, Danny Caplis, Mike Roberts, Rosen's coming. He'll sit with us, Dave Logan, Tancredo, and more. This is one more time. It's April 1st, and it's not April Fool. One more time. And Billy Thorpe and Brian Taylor and everybody, thank you guys. Highs in the 50s, light rain in a view house, I-25 at Arapahoe Road. Back after this.
The papers you need are all easy to get, and we never check. If the cops should catch you, they'll release you. Just remember John Hick and Looper love you. Please come to Denver, be a sport, 'cause I am one dishwasher short. Jump the border, tunnel of fruit, way across Rio Grande. Walk a while to the highway, climb into a van. Now we're American. The consular will help you get ID. You just won't believe all the things we get for free.
Howdy, hi.
Reconquista.
6:43.
We are La Raza.
17 before the hour. That's the beauty and the brilliance of Don Wrege, Media Horror Productions, coming up next. And I got to tell you something. Danny Hopkins is sitting next to me.
Your ID's a jive, but you want to drive. Who you gonna call? Bill Ritter.
That's right.
Here illegally. Leave it all to me. Who you gonna call? Bill Ritter.
Play that for Corey.
Unfortunate, Chuck. Know what I'm saying? Carlos Estrada Medina exposing Ritter's lies and revealing them to Bob Opry. Well, Ritter just freaked that the info leaked, so we called Steph Diaz.
6:44. It's 16 before the hour, 7 o'clock. The magic of Don Wrege in the background, Media Horror Productions, Peter Boyles, Don Wrege present. We're in a view house, and we were just talking about Corey Voorhees moments ago. Corey just walked in the door. Danny Hopkins, who was with us earlier, sitting on my right. The view house is starting to pack out. It really officially doesn't open for 16 more minutes. Old guys from Channel 7 will work together. They've come. Just an amazing morning. But I got to introduce this guy. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, he needs no introduction. He's been run out of Boulder. Donnie Wrege. And Donnie, man, that was a great tune. Thank you. Good morning, and I love you. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Peter. And I'm glad that Corey's in the room. His song was going to finish that little medley up. But in any case, I'll probably have them all back up online at MediaHorror.com by the end of the morning. Anyway, to respect the time, I was going to do a song. I was working on it before you announced your retirement. And as Bob Dylan says, oh, mama, can this really be the end?
Yeah. To be stuck inside a mobile with the Memphis Blues again. Yeah.
There you go. You're like Winter. I thought you'd never leave. I don't have the music behind it, but that little medley started with Please Come to Denver, which is another one that you suggested. Usually what happened was it started with the Ramsey songs. We did 14 of those, and then over the course of the next several years, we did 11 immigration songs. You heard a couple of those there. We did 10 songs of you would call me up and have me attack somebody in Denver. And then there were a few Boulder songs about El Dildo Bandito and Lord Churchill. So we covered the waterfront. But I do have one last song, but if you don't mind, I'll just read you the lyrics.
Please.
Please, all right. Please don't retire, Peter Boyles. You have been Denver's dominant voice for so many years, creating controversy every week. Who could forget Vagina to Get and Mrs. T? Everyone is choked up, even the Sheik. You stood up for the little guy and were always willing to fight, like for the wedding cake maker's First Amendment rights. You blew the whistle on Obama's past, ran a sanctuary city billboard up the mast, maintained the last election wasn't a who won it, and revealed the Ramsey case wasn't a whodunit. Motorcycles, wrestling, and rodeos, Denver sugar and players hose. I wonder what was the size of Mayor Hickenlooper's robe. You would have been great as Denver's homeless czar. You even managed to convince me to give Step Denver my car. And like a radio phoenix rising from the fog, you once more dominated the ratings, betting on an underdog. So please don't retire, Mr. Boyles. But if you've finally gotten the itch, know there are a lot of people out here who love you, you crusty old son of a bitch.
Donnie, wonderful, man. You brought up a couple that we went through, didn't we? We shot them all.
Oh, yeah. It would usually start on a Friday afternoon. I'd be settling in for the weekend, and then the phone would ring. And you would say something like, me and Mr. Jones. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, Ted Haggard in the Game of Suits.
That's right.
I go, oh, there goes the weekend.
Because remember,
and
that
then
was...
you'd cheerfully say, talk to you Monday morning. And so that's how most of them happen. You would come up with a concept, and it was pretty easy to flesh it out just from reading the headlines. But again, I'm very honored to be a part of this last show. It was a great honor to be a part of your show at all. Thank you so much for the inspiration through the years, and it was a lot of fun. And,
this is one of the most
love you a lot, buddy.
In a world of brilliant people. I don't know even how I met Donnie, but especially during the Ramseys when there were so many gifts, Werewolf of Boulder, and what we're going to do is we'll have a shoot when you come into the studio, and you and I with Mark, and we'll play some tunes and talk about where it came from. But Donnie was always so brilliant, and I could call him. I was running distances at the time, and I'd always get into that zone, and it would click. And like me and Mr. Jones, which you remember that one? I remember it really, really well. And or Paula the Brown-Nosed Reindeer, or all those tunes. And I say, Donnie, I got an idea. And that's as far as my end of it was. The rest of it was all reggae. So the Media Horror Productions is about 2% Pete Boyles and 98% Don Wrege. And you can find all those things, and they've been massive hits, and people hate us for them, but that was part of why we did it. And I honestly can say,
a lot of fun.
we'll do a shoot together. We'll do it in the studio, and we'll tell. Then we'll tell because we're not controlled by the FCC. Then we can tell the true stories.
That sounds great.
I love you.
Well,
Don.
you have happy trails, Peter.
Thank you, Bubba.
Thanks so much.
We'll talk to you. Thank you, sir. All right, as we got, yeah, there he is. It is 6:49, and although the place is packed, then the doors open, and for my first 9 years, almost 10 years at 710 KNUS, I shared the morning with Tom Muller. Tommy always led the league, came out and did the news in the morning. We become dear friends, and so Tommy's here this morning, and I'm looking right into the lights, so it's hard to see, but thank you, sir, and good morning.
It's the voice coming beyond the lights to you, Peter.
You don't know. There's out of the footlights. Remember, like you're acting, and footlights are in
right,
but,
right. So good to be here. So good to be with you, and to give a tribute to you on this April Fool's Day.
Yeah.
And you remember what we did on April Fool's Day?
He's here.
Uh-huh.
He's here. Roberto was here someplace, and
Yeah, I saw him.
yeah,
And I had just gotten back from vacation in Santa Barbara, but we spun a tale that I was in San Antonio learning Spanish. And
it was Roberto who and Efron, and they were running the FM. He's going to come up and join me on the stage here. We'll put it up this way. So Roberto's here someplace. He just came in. Roberto is the fastest bilingual. Efron was quick too. So I decided an April Fool's stunt that the morning show was being taken over by Spanish language, and they called themselves Chuy and Baca. Yeah. And they were the new morning guys. It ended up, this is a true story, the Aurora cops came because we were talking about the cars in the parking lot. Crowley played out in it.
Yep.
Remember, they wouldn't let Crowley in the building.
Yeah, right.
And you and I pulled that off.
And we were changing the format to a Spanish.
Remember, you were trying to do news in Spanish.
Yes. And Roberto and Efren were laughing so hard at my effort to do Spanish. I couldn't look at them because I would blow the gig.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because I'd start laughing as I'm trying to read Spanish.
And somebody, I think we used Kelly Michaels as the new GM.
Yes. Right.
I forget what name we gave Kelly. Mm-hmm. And Kelly he was like the voice on the other side of the wall. And it's over. Get out. Yeah. You know, you guys are through. And there were, what was it, Roberto? There were black SUVs in the parking lot. But it ended up, the Aurora PD came. And Crowley was, I can't get in the building. Crowley's on the other side of the wall telling me I can't get in the building. That was a stunt. That was a good stunt.
Now, I've heard this presented in the last few days. That begs a question. Is this an April Fool's joke?
No. You only get one of those. And do you know Danny Hopkins, by the way? You ever met Danny before?
I don't know that I have.
I'll tell you, there's a one-of-a-kind. We're going to sneak him in before we get out of here, too.
But it's been an honor to open the show with you since the moment you arrived here.
What did they say? We had us a time.
Yeah, we did.
We had us a time.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, now you're kind of in semi-retirement.
I am. I'm still doing the FM, but I'm getting up 2 hours later rather than being with you. I'm not covering the boneheaded news decisions that our newsmakers are making and our elected officials. And I'm doing the morning show on the Christian station, on the FM. And I go home and take a nap.
What Tommy does, and this is a typical radio thing, about 5 minutes after 8, I go out for coffee. Tom goes by and says good night. he's going home. He's going to take a nap. He's good night, everybody.
Yeah.
It is the morning show here. It's people are coming in now, and it's I don't know. So what's the lesson of radio? What do we know after all these years?
What do we know?
Yeah. Because I got 50 years with this guy.
Boy, what do we know?
Yeah.
Well, we know that a lot of changes have taken place. We know that we have some lifelong friendships. And I'm a month and a half older than you are, Peter. And I had to be helped up on the platform. So we know that.
Oof. It is that. It was, like I said before, this is the last song. And now I'm going to stay with the radio station. I'll do commercial voices, and I'll do some of the shoot stuff that Mark and I do, and maybe do an editorial. But
in fact, you opened the door for me, I understand, that they're going to do some shoots with Christian books, similar to what
and you
doing.
did. I got to tell you something. We've had some great ones, and Tom Tancredo was on the radio show later this morning. The one that you did and the one that Tom did, were killers. When I don't know, you never know what to expect. When Tom told the story about how he was guided through all of this, and then you told your story, and it is, and everybody that's watched it has sent me a message. They had tears when you told the story about your life and your wife. So that means a lot.
Good.
I think where Billy go, we're rounding third, heading for home. We're going to do a quick turnaround. We're turning a break. When we come back, Lee Larsen, who is unquestionably the finest man. Mike Rosen will be sitting right here. Dan Caplis, Joe Williams, Mike Roberts, Dave Logan, Tancredo, and so many more. Everybody hang on. Give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you all. I mean, the giant is jumping. We come back. Hold on your hats from the View House. It is 7 a.m., everyone. Good morning. One more time. April the 1st, 2022. The doors are now open. 710 KNUS, Denver's talk station. Take one more shot at it. I just want to say from Frank DeAngelis is here. Corey Voorhees is here. Kenny Danon is here. How many other folks have I seen? Scotty and Ginny are here. Just so many people coming in. Danny Hopkins is with me. I'm Peter Boyles. This is 710 KNUS. One more time we take a look at it. Highs in the 50s and then some light rain in the View House, I-25 off of Arapahoe Road. Sheriff Reams is here too as well. I mean, I got folks coming here and we got a lot more people on the show. We ready to go with this? Not yet. We're standing by for Lee Larsen. FYI, I want to turn his mic on for a second. No guts, no glory. This is the guy. Can we?
No.
We can do it?
Yeah.
The wrong mic. This is Dan Hopkins, everyone, who ended up press secretary for Bill Owens. And he is responsible for all of this. And he's down here with us this morning. I love you, man. Thank you.
It's been a great 50 years, Peter.
He gave me my shot, and he let me become a writer for the Traffic Reporter.
How could you be a writer for Traffic Reporter?
Stole other people's traffic reports from the radio. we had a push-button radio. We're waiting for Lee Larsen, and we would listen to KHOW. We would listen to KOA. Kim, Dick Dillon. Right. Speak to the mic like we talked. And we did it by phone, and Danny gave me my shot. And then when the Traffic Reporter one morning didn't show up, I went on the air. It was the day my daughter was born. And you said, go ahead, and then you gave me the gig.
Well, everything was meant to be, obviously. It turned out all the pieces fell into place, and here you are. Here we are.
Here we are. It's been a hell of a 50 years.
It has been a quick 50 years. You were what, 23, 24 years old?
I don't know how old I was. Well, I'm 78 now. I was 28, 27, 28.
Yeah, you're a young guy.
You gave me a gig, and I said, okay, we'll do this. But this man is one of the most decent men I've ever known in my life, and he's forgiven me for all kinds of things that I did. Bo Cottrell's here. You remember Bo? Bo's here. I can't believe the amount of people. Jimmy just walked in. It's just the joint is jumping. The guy from Stepper here. And old friends from Channel 7 have come in the door.
Well, I think you could change your mind and not retire.
No. You know what? I know you're retired. How did it feel when you retired?
It felt different, but it felt very good. I mean, it took a little while to get used to it, and you'll have a little adjustment period, but you'll be fine. You're going to do well. You're still going to be doing stuff. Podcasts and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, you'll be fine.
Somebody doing it. Billy, where do we stand here right now? Billy Thorpe. They got stage lights on us, and so it's kind of Billy. What are we doing with what we're doing? We don't know. Bill, we got him? No, not yet. We're waiting for Lee Larsen. Yet to come this morning, Caplis will be here with us, and Mike Rosen will be here with us, and Joe Williams, and Roberts, and Logan, and just all those guys. Who was doing radio shows when we first met? Well, there she is. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Patti Calhoun from Westward. Hey, all right. Now, I adore this woman. Without her, Denver media isn't anything. This is our goodbye. You look beautiful. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure.
I wasn't sure who's on the phone or who's showing up.
My mother lives 5 minutes away.
You're here.
I just zoomed here.
How long have you run Westward?
44 years.
Wow. Danny, of course, Danny was Bill Owens' press secretary.
Right.
He gave me my gig. He gave me my first shot. And you look, by the way, you look great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so we did Channel 12 together for how many years?
I think it was 16 when you were the host.
Yeah.
It was close to 16.
Do you remember when the mayor would not come in the building? We won't say which mayor.
Wellington Webb.
Would not walk in the building if you and I were there.
That was a great honor, I think. And do you remember when you threw
A lot
me...
of feedback, Mark. Kill it, please. You guys, we can't have that much feedback. I'm sorry. We're going to run back through.
Do you remember when you threw me off your radio show? We were talking about Dean Reed.
Another person that... Dean Reed and I got into a... It's hard for people to believe I actually would get into a fight with somebody. Mary Kay Morrow, who I think may be coming down here. Well, tell the story. Go ahead.
Well, so we had written a story about Dean Reed, who was a Denver native who'd gone to Russia to become a rock star.
Yeah.
And I think he was in Denver for the film festival.
American Rebel.
We did a story on him, and we went on your show to talk about it, I think before you threw him off.
I didn't throw him off. I grabbed him.
Oh, okay.
He
You
ran.
didn't grab us. You threw us
Oh,
off.
no. Come on, did you?
I went on with Robin Chotsenoff, my writer who'd done the story,
Yeah.
and you threw us off, and it was a great moment.
Oh,
You didn't slap us. You
No.
threw us off.
well, it goes to the Dean Reed story. I understand that book, it was called American Rebel. It may have been optioned as a movie.
I think it was. I think
What
they
was it?
made a movie. I think they made a doc.
He was on 60 Minutes.
You're right.
But he was like the, he was a weird dude. He'd had a hit. I remember Clark Seacrest. He'd had a top 40 hit in Denver back sometime in the 50s on Kim Radio or something. And then he went to the Soviet Union.
Right. And then he died very mysteriously.
Drowned.
Right.
With no water in his lungs.
Mm-hmm. So that was a great Denver episode.
I forgot that.
I think it's possible at the time you were not yet a sober person.
No, I was, because I'd been in the...
Oh, you still threw us off.
Come on, it happens again. But I had been to Seattle for the first of the Berg trials.
Okay.
And he knew it. And he'd been in Nicaragua entertaining the Sandinistas. And I said, they're killing people. They were killing Indian people. And he put his arm on. He was a big guy, and he had another big guy with him. And he put his arm on me, and he said, "You sound like those men on trial in Seattle." And I had just testified. And I pushed his arm off. And we were in the hotel when that happened, the lobby of the hotel. And Mary Kay, who was about 4 foot nothing and about $120 wet, and I pushed his arm, and he jumped up, and I thought, okay, we're going to, and then they ran out. And Dale Evans was there.
Oh, that is a great lineup.
It's a great story. And what was the Asian guy that was your reporter?
Gil Asakawa.
Gilbert was there, and they were big guys. I was so relieved that they ran, because if they'd have turned around, they'd have smothered me. But they were both big. He had a fringe jacket on. I remember, because he showed up in television with this really kind of Wild Bill Hickok jacket on, and they ran for the limo. And I'm thinking, what kind of commies are riding around in limos? And I grabbed him, and he got up, and as soon as he got up, I'm like, oh my God, this guy's big. If I'm going to hit him, I better hit him now. And they ran. And then Dale Evans, I'll finish the story because we got Lee. I went over and knelt down next to Dale Evans. She was here raising money for a Christian boys ranch. And I knelt down, and I said, "Miss Evans, I'm very sorry." And she said, "Rory would have been proud of you."
Well, it's an honor. The people you have who won't talk to you, who leave your show, John Eastman.
Oh, Professor Eastman.
That's a great one.
Oh.
That he won't talk to you. That's an honor.
But he won't talk to the House or the Congress either. He took 146 times. He's taken the
Right,
fifth.
you're not exactly exclusive.
Not alone.
But still, you were the first.
Yeah, I'm not alone. Sit still. Let me do this because of time. You guys want to kill these outside mics, please? Ladies and gentlemen, if there's somebody I always say, there's no one finer than this man. He's in Arizona. His name is Lee Larsen. He ran Clear Channel, and when people say there's no second acts in life, and I must add 15, and he's responsible for at least 7 of them. Hey, boss, good morning. Thanks for doing the show, and welcome back to 710 KNUS.
Hey, thanks, Peter. Congratulations. I didn't think this day would ever come.
We got to kill the room, you guys. There's way too much feedback. Please, everyone, thank you. You hired me, Kris Olinger. Go ahead, sir, please. I'm sorry I didn't hear you.
Yeah, okay. You're getting feedback because you're talking to a manager. That's what happens.
Would someone please do it? Because, when you're talking to a manager, you're going to get feedback. When you came to town, and it was Belo, right?
Yeah, that was the company that brought me and had just purchased the radio stations, yeah.
And you had come from Santa Barbara, I believe.
From Los Angeles.
From L.A. What was the station you were working at
From
in
LA. I was working at KLOS, which was owned by ABC, the sister station of KABC out in Los Angeles.
And you walked into Allen Berg. And me.
He was the very first person. I was waiting in a hotel for the deal to be done. I stayed probably a week at the hotel before the opportunity to actually come over to the radio station, and I got a phone call in my hotel one night from Allen, and he wanted to complain about the fact that he had been moved to nights.
That's right.
And that Andrea Van Steenhouse had taken his place on the air during the day. Yeah, so that was the first guy I ran into, and he found me before anybody.
I remember when you came, and then you were here for like a cup of coffee, and the company got sold. GE sold. Is that?
That's correct.
And then you had to make a
decision. Before my family got moved, it got sold, and but I hung in because the new company was a rather exciting company called J-Core, and you remember them.
Don't I ever?
They were real radio people, and they let us do a lot of fun stuff.
You know what? Lee's here, and the business has changed so much, but when J-Core had it, and there was a legendary radio guy by the name of Randy Michaels, who nobody is neutral about Randy Michaels. But, you know, you're a radio guy, this idea of being a radio guy. Lee, what does that mean?
Well, it means you care about the product. It means you care about what comes out of the speaker, you know, the relationship with your audience and all of that. That's what a real radio guy is, as opposed to a money guy that's worried about how much profit are we making or how much money are we losing.
Yeah. And I think that...
Or how much are we overpaying talk hosts?
That part of it is true. But you...
Isn't that so? Yeah.
But, you know, you had what I call an ear. You knew. You knew what was right and what was wrong. And I got to tell you, working for this guy, I learned more from Lee. You know, there's a handful of people that I can look back on that I learned from. Gus Merkus and certainly Bob Lee, Uncle Mike McEwen, Hal and Charlie. But to really do it in a very sophisticated manner, it really is this man, Lee Larsen. And even when you would beat people up, which you did, and Lee had an office that he had the magic button. When he brought you in and he reached under his desk and the door would close behind you, and it was like, okay, this is going to get good. But you know what you did, boss? You never let anybody leave until you said something nice to them, even after you said what you said. And that's important.
Well, that's right. That's very kind of you, Pete. But this is a show about you, not about anybody else. What an awesome career that you've had, unlike anyone I can think of in Denver. The length of the career, all the different phases of it have just been phenomenal. And as you've been talking about this morning, the different people that you've had an impact on, the kinds of folks you've had on your show, the stories that you dug into, that you didn't let just the press release kind of coverage. You dug deep. It's an amazing career, Peter. Absolutely amazing. And I think all of us that know and worked with you are just so proud that we had that opportunity to be around you. Even during your tough times, it was just great. You've been amazing.
You have
and,
always.
We're going to be missed. You're going to be missed a lot.
That's kind, but you have never. I could call this man in the darkest part of my life, and he was always there. And this whole list of people that we're talking to this morning, and I can think of the significant people. Danny Hopkins is sitting next to me, and we talked to Rick Lewis this morning, and all those guys. But you're the one, and I really mean this. You stood with me through lawsuits. You stood through me with, craziness.
Well, that's what we do, and you did your part. You made great radio, and you made it easy for us most of the time to support you. And I know you feel really bad about I'm so glad that your little health scare turned out to be nothing other than a shot across the bow, so to speak, and all that. I'm glad you had no lasting effects of that, and I know that you felt really bad about not being able to articulate and, put two words together and you weren't making sense and all of that. And I don't want you to feel bad about that because most of us didn't think that was any different than a normal show.
I have this theory anyhow that no matter who you are ethnically, when you turn 85, you start speaking Norwegian. And I started speaking Norwegian about 20 after 8. But
I hear you. Well, it's just good that it was nothing serious, and wish you many, many great years of enjoyment in this semi-retirement you're entering into.
Well, baseball season's about to start, so I know like the Swallows coming back to Capistrano, you're coming back to town. The one and only,
true.
Huh? You are the one and only. No one better.
Well, thank you,
when old radio guys sit around and talk, Dave's coming up and Mike's coming up, everybody says you. So you are the man. Lee, thank you.
I'm sure sorry. I'm sorry I'm not there to be with all those great guys and ladies. I mean, the people that you worked with in your career and that I had the privilege of working with. What a great thing. And I'm glad they're all there to pay tribute to you. And like I said, I wish I was there in person, but glad that you let me come on and at least congratulate you.
Wouldn't have been the show without you. I'll see you at lunch as soon as you get to town. Lee Larsen, everyone.
Yep.
Thanks, Lee. The best to everybody, man. Thank you so much. All right. It's 16.
Okay, Pete, see you.
Bye, sir. 16 after the hour. Years ago, I met a guy named Bob Cote, and he was a life changer. This is Paul. Of course, Paul City now runs Step. Now it's Step Denver. Hey, man.
Good morning, Pete.
How are you? I'm good, man.
Great
How are you?
to see you.
Yeah, you look wonderful. Let your hair grow.
Well, thank you. Yes, it's at the behest of my wife.
Did she say that? It's about time. Yeah, because you and I were like, the short hair guys. And
yeah, very short hair, but my wife wants my 70s look back. So.
Well, now, Paul, when Bob passed away, and Step 13 is a whole other. Mike Rosen's going to be here, and Mike saved Step. We'll get him to tell that story.
You both saved Step.
Wow.
You're too humble, Peter.
The point of it is, this place exists because this really remarkable guy named Bob Cote. And you have done, I got a chance to say this to some other people, you've carried the torch.
Well, thank you.
Now, please.
I can't fill his shoes, but I can only hope to walk in them.
Well, you've done a hell of a job. And for the people that think that this homeless problem, the end of the trail, I remember we did Step Fest.
Yep. Out in the parking lot.
Katie Monahan's here. Did you see her? Katie's here.
I have not seen.
Katie went to Step Fest with us, and I don't know who came up with that one, but that was a good one. That was a good idea.
I want to say it was Vincent that came up with
Vincent?
that.
Vincent's here too, and you guys have made a difference in the city. You really have.
Well, thank you, and I'm here on behalf of the thousands and thousands of men that you have helped to save in our city and in our state. The work you have done, Peter, is nothing short of remarkable.
Yeah.
For listeners that don't know, Peter has advocated for us for years, both on the radio.
Since I got sober.
But also as a board member.
Yeah.
Right? And your sobriety date is coming up at Easter?
Easter. Good Friday, Easter Sunday.
That'll be 36, 37?
36.
Okay. And the work you have done, we cannot thank you enough. And I'm here to thank you for the thousands of men whose efforts that you've contributed to have saved their lives.
Well, that man we just left, Lee Larsen, when I went into wellness, he saw it happen. So that's a hell of a thing, man.
It's a big step when you take that step, right? And we're just glad
I'll be with you
that you've made it possible for Step Denver to help homeless men suffering from addiction that have nowhere else to go to overcome those consequences through sobriety, work, and accountability. Brother, I love you.
Love you.
Thank you so much.
It means so much. All right, everybody. It is almost 19 after the hour 7. I can't begin to tell you how many folks are here. Coming up, Dan Caplis will be sitting with us. Joe Williams. Mike Roberts is with us. Dave Logan. Tancredo is coming on the show. Chris Olinger. We'll get Christine to tell stories about when we went through the Ramseys together. Billy Thorpe, Peter Boyles, Kelly Michaels, Brian Taylor, Mel Ferguson, all the troops are here, and Frank DeAngelis is here as well. Everybody, this is 710 KNUS. We are Denver's talk station, the View House, I-25 at Arapahoe Road. I want you to meet somebody everybody knows. Ladies and gentlemen, Mike Rosen.
Thank you.
710 KNUS, Denver's talk station. I'm Peter Boyles. This, of course, is April 1, and it's not an April Fool. This is the last time, and this is where the cowboy rides away. And we invited so many great people. Caplis coming up, Joe Williams, Logan's coming on the show, Tancredo's coming on the show. It means a lot for me, you being here, man. Thank you.
Well, I remember, by the way, when he said it's the last time, don't believe it. We all come back. Tom Brady said he was retiring. He didn't.
You and I, we met at KWBZ Radio.
1980, December.
Known as the mother of all battles.
That's right.
Saddam always
the
said.
nifty 1150.
Others are talking, we're rocking. And Michael, I can tell you a story about Michael. And I say this too privately and publicly all the time. Michael brought a conservative voice to Denver radio. We were all communists. And Mike came in, it's a true story, and he wheeled in, I don't know if you remember this, you wheeled
Filing
in
cabinet.
a file cabinet.
Of course.
I mean, what the hell is this guy doing with
For
a
ready
file
reference.
cabinet?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a file cabinet.
Yeah.
And he came to work in radio with a tie.
Well, I was a businessman. I wore a tie a lot.
And he came in and...
I think half the people in this room don't even know what a tie is.
That's right. I certainly don't. and Mike comes in. Now, we had about a week and a half of radio, I think, together.
No, we did 5 weeks. This is 6 to 10 a.m.
All right, yeah.
And Pete was the liberal. I was the conservative. We went back and forth. It was very civil.
It was.
Never a yelling or a screaming.
No, it wasn't.
I'm driving in one morning. This is after, and I gave up. I took a 60% pay cut when I made my switch over.
Don't tell Larsen that.
From my corporate career to KNUS. I've got a wife and 2 kids. Nancy thought I was nuts. I said, I can always go back to corporate finance. I want to take a shot at this. And after 5 weeks, I'm driving in one morning. I was living in Parker. KNUS was on Broadway and Hamblin around there.
I'll tell you the cross street. It was Broadway. It'll come to me. Yeah. But you're right.
Yeah. And it's 4:15, 4:30 in the morning. We've got a 6 o'clock show. I'm going there for an hour of show prep. Pete would come in at 5 seconds to showtime. And I turn on our station. There should be an overnight talk show host, and they're playing 50s rock and roll. I get into the building. I said, what happened? He said, we changed the format. You're all fired. Right? And you and I were out of work.
True story.
Yeah.
But a guy that pulls up in a Porsche Targa with a tan like right from Palm Beach.
Who's that?
John Mullins.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And he gets out of the car, and he's an heir to the Mullins Broadcasting fortune. And he goes to look at me and Rosen, and he said, you guys are gone.
Yeah.
Welcome to radio.
Yeah, exactly. So you had a little event on the air, and you told your listeners.
You had an event on the air.
I did. Mine was a little different than yours. I'd gone in for a hemorrhoidectomy on Friday. They dope you up during it, so it was nothing. It was like a colonoscopy with a sedative. And I asked my doc, I said, well, can I go back to work on Monday? He said, no, you're not going back to work on Monday. I said, why not? Well, I went back to work on Monday, 9 to noon show on KOA. I sat down. I had a little
had a pillow,
inflated pillow I sat on. Within 15 minutes, my eyes are tearing. We go to a commercial break, the bottom of the hour, and I say to my producer, I say, that's it.
Can't do this.
Can't do this. Don't go back to work 3 days after you have your hemorrhoids adjusted. Yeah.
Do you remember when you had a thing with your heart?
Yeah.
And Larsen and I called you. We're in Lee's office, proving you had one.
No, and as I've explained, I have the heart of a small boy, and I keep it in a jar of formaldehyde on my desk.
So Rosen, I don't know what the hell they're fixing you, what they did to you, but some weird thing with your heart, like we both have. But you were. So Larsen comes and gets me. He said, "Well, so let's call him up." And so we called you, and I don't know if you were like grogged out or whatever. I said, "I've proven that you have a heart." No,
actually, it had nothing to do with my heart. It was some other body organ.
Some weird thing, but then we beat.
I was in the hospital for a few days.
So I mean, looking back, how much it's Mike Rosen and Peter Boyles, 710 KNUS. It's coming up on 7:30. Lee was with us this morning. He is in repose in Arizona.
I know.
So what's changed, and what have you seen happen in the business?
Well, there was no such thing as streaming before or podcasts. Anybody in the country can be a talk show host now. You just do a podcast. You're not going to make any money doing it. Some people make money on podcasts, but only a tiny fraction. People bring a lot of their music into the car now. Over-the-air radio has never had these kind of competitive challenges before. There's been consolidation in the industry. You've got big companies like iHeart and Salem and others
sure.
that dominate now. As far as music's concerned, a lot of DJs are just gone. Ones that are still around have taken a 50% pay cut.
Yeah.
Just the nature of the business and the revenues. A lot of it's program music. The radio stations are trying to cut costs. The pandemic was murder.
Yeah.
And we're a big 50,000 watt station, part of the iHeart empire. And at one point early in the pandemic, we had lost more than 50% of our advertisers.
Oh.
Retailers weren't advertising because their stores were closed, restaurants, all kinds of things like that. So there's been a recovery since then, but nobody knows what the future is. And streaming is great, but from a revenue standpoint, the ads that run on streaming broadcasts bring in a tiny fraction of the revenues that the over-the-air broadcasts do. And talk show hosts like you and me are not so much in style.
No, we're not
anymore. They like people who are firebrands and over the top and play to a core. So what I love about you, you're so well read, you do so much research, your show prep, you're always prepared. You don't just vent, but there are a lot of people that just vent, and their core audiences love it.
We knew, it's Mike Rosen, Peter Boyles, 29 before the hour, Danny Caplis coming up. We're at the View House, I-25 off of Arapahoe Road. It's going to rain today. There are guys called radio guys, and I've said this publicly and privately. There's 3 guys I know that sat down and got it. You, Dave Logan, and Allen Berg.
Very good, yeah.
I mean, Dave's coming up on the show, and of course we've lost Allen. You sat down, and you never did traffic reports, you never did the news, you never disc jockeyed, but there was some intrinsic, something inside of you. When you sat in front of the microphone, you had it.
The first minute I did of radio, I felt relaxed and comfortable.
Yeah.
I had done a lot of public speaking and that kind of stuff before, and I was used to talking to audiences.
Sure.
So I didn't have any stage fright or mic fright. But it's like studying for a test in school. If you've spent 5 hours studying for the exam, you breeze through it. If you haven't studied at all, it's a painful experience.
Oh, yeah.
Being prepared is part. People find this hard to believe, but I was on the air for 15 hours a week for more than 35 years, 3 hours a day. I worked 70-hour weeks.
Yeah.
So much of it was research. Also, hey, we're salespeople. We go out and talk to advertisers. I had 20, 30 different advertisers a year, and I'd visit their stores and go out to lunch with them.
It's friendships.
I'd go home and do all kinds of we started, Peter, before there was an internet. You had to go to the library if you want to do some research.
Got to read the book.
Yeah. It's so much easier now with the internet. And I love interaction with callers. Just love it.
Oh, yeah.
For some reason, people listening to radio shows don't call in the way they used to. And a lot of talk show hosts now are taking tweets from people.
The text, yeah, take the text.
Text messages. I hate that. I want the personal live interaction.
Final story, because
Yeah,
we're
go
going
ahead.
to break in Caplis is
in.
coming up, and I want
Yeah.
you to stay in the audience. Stay with me. Do you remember when you called the guy the body part for burning the flag?
Yes, I did.
I'm driving down, I'm going to be with Rosen. There's a million, and you called the guy, and this is when you couldn't do that on radio.
Joey Johnson in Texas.
Joey Johnson.
That's right.
And you body parted him on the air.
And that was the case that went to the Supreme Court.
Absolutely. That's what I'm bringing up. Yeah.
That opened it up for burning flags.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the body parted the guy, and when you saved step 13, the story of the guy came with a water wrench. Cote stole that. So you were doing something. You knew Bob before I did, and they'd shut the water off at Step.
That's right.
Do you remember this?
Sure. The wolf was at the door. The electricity was going to go off. They were just dead broke.
Yeah.
And somebody introduced me to Bob. I said, okay, it was right around Christmas time, as a matter of fact.
Absolutely.
I said, why don't I do a remote there, and we'll do a radiothon.
Yep.
And I think we raised $50,000 for him that day.
Yep.
And that kept them running. And I did that radiothon for 30 years after that, every December.
And then they shut the water off. Some guy pulls up illegally with a water wrench and turns the water back on. You save Step.
Yeah. You remember the nun? I forgot her name. She was an anti-war nun.
Sister,
not Sister Soldier.
Sister hated you, but
Yeah.
I remember Sister not being fond.
And I had her on the show.
Yeah.
And we went at it politically.
Sure,
It was really
sure.
fun.
Oh, yeah.
So here that was my crowning achievement. I beat up a nun.
I got to do a turn. Mike's going to stay. Caplis is coming up. Right now, now I got to put the headsets on. Put them on. You put them on with me, Mike. We'll put them on. There is, again, when we talk about legendary guys who have been in this business. So I'm working at KHW Radio and the noontime guy, and in comes Dan Caplis. Hey, Danny, good morning. Mike's here. I'm here. Thank you for coming on the show with us. It's 710 KNUS one last time. Dan Caplis, everybody. Danny, good morning.
Oh, Peter, it's such an honor. I've got to tell you, just listening to you and Mike and Lee and everybody, all these great memories flooding back. I mean, this has been the best morning I've had in years.
Yeah, Logan's coming up and Tancredo's coming up. When we met you, I was doing mornings on KHOW. Mike was doing, you were doing 9 to noon. 9 to noon on KOA. And you took over at 12. Had you ever done radio before either?
Dan?
No, not at all. I had just met Tom Martino over at Channel 4. I was doing on-air stuff there, and that led to you guys. And I walked in the door and I said, oh, my word, I'm not in Kansas anymore.
And that was the old Lawrence Street place.
That's right, yeah.
That was a hell of a place. Yeah.
Penthouse.
Absolutely.
Top floor.
That was the killer. So how did you learn the business, Danny? We're talking about Mike, and we're talking about AB, and talking about Dave Logan, and the guys that kind of sat down and got it. Martino's coming up a little bit later. He's coming in here to talk with us. But what's the secret to lasting?
Well, I learned the business watching you guys. I knew nothing about that other than as a listener. But I walked in, and there you guys are, and there Lee is.
Yeah.
And honest to goodness, not to get mushy, but I just literally thank God, that I had somehow been lucky enough to fall into the middle of that, because I mean, you guys were giants in much different ways, obviously, but how could somebody not be okay on air hanging around you guys?
Well, there's the thing about radio is you're only as good as the guy ahead of you and the guy behind you.
Good point.
I mean, you have to be a good guy leading in, and radio is the only where the cleanup batter bats first. But you're only as good as the guy between you, the guy in the open and the guy in the close. And you always had great guys. I mean, Danny, you always had a great lead. You had, and Mike, you always had a great lead.
Well, when you're doing this full time, especially in your first 10 or maybe 20 years, there's no security. You can be fired in any second.
We served at the King's pleasure.
Yeah.
And I'm the one that got canned a bunch of times, but that was all part of like prize fighting. Get back up again, see what they got. But you now, Danny still does afternoon drive on 630 KHW. Mike does fill-in work, and I ask you this if you miss doing it.
No, I don't miss doing 5 days a week. After 35 or 36 years of 5 days a week radio, working 70 hours a week, I was about 74 or so, and I decided to back off.
Yeah.
But I had read a couple of books about retirement, what to plan for, and what to be ready, what to watch out for. And I'm a Type A personality.
Really?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the capital of Taiwan is named after me. Taipei. And I didn't want to be bored.
Yeah.
So I don't work 70 hours a week anymore, maybe just 40 now.
Yeah, really.
And my exit strategy, I talked to the management at KOA. I said, I wouldn't mind hanging around and doing fill-ins and just being still on the air, but no more 5 day a week. I can do 5 day a week for 2 weeks at a time, and I have, especially during the pandemic. But really, I don't want to do it that much either. But I still love being on air. And all of the research I do, because I'm interested in public policy, I do it anyway, even if I weren't on air, so I might as well harvest that time.
Danny, what do you say to that? I mean, I know that, you have a great law practice, and then you do the radio show 5 days a week. How do you pull it off?
Yeah. Well, for me, Pete, I've got these causes that consume me, and I'll probably run for office someday, so staying on air makes sense for me. And, I like to fight every day because, in my job as a trial lawyer, I mean, how often do you actually get to trial? Because, as you know, if they do what they should on the other side, the case settles and you don't get to trial. So for me, going on air every day, it's like a mini trial. It just gets me going.
You got to, I tell everybody, you do 4 hours on the air, you better do 6 off in the afternoon, and like Mike does and I do. And of course, we're also very lucky. Mike's a great reader as well. And I always say, they pay me to do what I love.
Yeah.
Or they pay me for what I used to get beat up for.
That was
being a wise guy.
Advice I gave my daughters, and I was able to do that.
Oh.
If you want to feel gratified, fulfilled, and generally happy, life is not nothing but happiness. Try to turn your avocation into your vocation. Something you love to do, and then get paid for it. Now, you might love fly fishing, but it's hard to make a good living at it. This business, as I say,
I'm comfortable.
Yeah. Everybody knows that joke. This nice Jewish man in Bensonhurst section of Brooklyn is walking across the street, gets hit by a car. Irish cop comes over, comforts him, takes his jacket off, puts it under his head. He said, "Sir, are you comfortable?" The little Jewish man said, "Well, I wouldn't say I'm comfortable. I'm earning a living."
We're breaking. Danny, we're going to have lunch next week. Dan Caplis, Mike Rosen. We come back. The one and only the hitman, Joe Williams. More to come. And everyone stay right here, 710 KNUS. US. Good morning, everyone. 710 KNUS, 746-14 before the hour of 8 o'clock. And this is my grandson right down here, Liam Boyles. Yes, the man is here. Hey, my son Morgan's here. Tom Tancredo's here. I saw him a second ago. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, he's been such a good friend and an advisor through all of this. The one, the only, Brian Gray. And you look good, man. I told you, wear a white shirt. And, and we got Joe Williams coming up. There's Martino right here. Tom Martino, everybody. How are you, my boy?
Doing good.
Last day?
You enjoying the day?
Yeah, it's really been great. It's, no tears. We make it work.
All right.
Do it, because I got the hitman on hold. Give me the numbers if you would, and Amy's here too. Amy and Brian are here, if you would, please.
All right, let's hit the numbers real quick, guys. We're coming off 2 quarters back-to-back losses, so we're looking for a better quarter going forward. Today we got the Dow up 67, Nasdaq's up 39, and the S&P's up 10. Pete, real quick, we got a little surprise for you. Amy's going to talk about it, and then we're out of here.
Go ahead. Grab the mic. Yeah, there we go.
All right, everybody. So if we would have invested in Peter Boyles when he was born, the Dow Jones was at 134. Now it's over 34,000. You know what that is? That's a great investment.
I love you. Thank you. I heard you yesterday with the baby in the background. These are wonderful, special people. If you got something to ask, for heaven's sakes, they're here now. Grab a hold of them. Alpine Planning, a comprehensive financial planning firm committed to improving your long-term financial success. Investing is a matter of trust, and they will earn yours. 303-843-0918. We got it? And now we're going to be together Wednesday, right?
See you next week. Woodbury Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC and registered investment advisor. Alpine Planning Group and Woodbury Financial Services, Inc. are not affiliated entities. 14 West Dry Creek Circle, Littleton, Colorado, 80120.
All right, 7:48, 12 before the hour. No one better. Joe Williams. If there was ever a guy that walked and did talk, ladies and gentlemen, the hitman. Hitman, good morning, man. Uncle Dave's coming up later. Joe, thanks for doing the show. It means so much, and good morning.
Pete, it is an honor, and I wish that I could be down there with you.
You know, we're going to do...
Sounds like you're having fun.
Oh, man, listen, we're going to continue our shoot interviews on YouTube. Do me a favor. Do a shoot with me. Come in and do an hour, and we'll show it to people about you and everything that you're about. And, I've used that fight analysis or analogies where Rocky Marciano takes the gloves off. And Joe and I talked about this on the phone. And Joe's a bigger fight fan than I am. He's actually been a fight judge. But when Rocky took him off, and then the guys that keep him on and stay too long, what happens? Did that get through to you, Joe?
Go ahead, Pete. I'm sorry, I missed it.
I said I was talking about the fight analysis or analogies when when Rocky Marciano quits, undefeated, and we both love Rocky, but we're both Muhammad fans, and Muhammad stayed too long, did he? Did he not?
Yeah, he did. That's for sure. Ali was, I think Ali was like number 2 on my list behind the Brown Bomber. Marciano would not have stood a chance against either one of those in their prime. Of course, Lewis fought on and went on way too long. But Pete, let me tell you something. This is kind of bittersweet for me. It's an honor to be on with you on your last show. 50 years ago when I moved to Denver, my radio heroes were Hal Moore, Bob Lee, and you. And you still are.
Well, thank
you. And somehow you have outlasted them all. Bad producers, bad bosses,
bad juju.
Bad signals. We've been at some of the same stations.
We could tell stories.
At times we both got caught in the revolving door at Denver radio.
Woo!
And I remember one time, me and Irv, it was the day after Christmas, we walked into the building, and they got Jose Feliciano singing Feliz Navidad. We looked at each other and said, where do we go next? It's great to hear that you're going out on your own terms. I love that. And they deserve it. It's what you have done is, I don't think anybody else has ever done what you've done.
Well,
you're still going after all these years and doing it like nobody else can do it, and there isn't anybody like you.
I'm the lucky.
And I'll tell you what, Pete, you deserve safe travels and ride off into the sunset. And I learned an awful lot of stuff, a lot of lessons from you over the years. And one of them was, if you're going to be a gunfighter, you got to call them out in the street.
Sure you do.
I'll never forget you challenging those a-holes who killed Allen Berg to meet you out in the alley over there on BZ.
No, that wasn't them.
That was house we broadcast.
Joe, that wasn't them. That was another guy.
But I said, when I heard you do that, I said, you know what? This guy's got a lot of hard bark on him, and you do, and you've outlasted everybody.
Well, that's
kind of. I'm really proud of you and honored to be your friend.
We had a phone conversation the other night, Joe and I, and we could not do it on the air. At least we could one time, and we'd both have to go to jail. But there were times, and I told people before, in the scuffling days, a lot of radio got settled in the parking lot, and a lot of radio got settled in bars, and a lot of radio. But that was back then, and you know some of them, and I know some of them, but it made you better. And, or I don't know, maybe you couldn't. And now look what they did to Will Smith, but, back then, boy, guys were tagging guys. And I don't know if it made it better or worse, but it certainly happened, Hitman. And those weren't the guys that murdered Allen. That was another bunch of creeps, and this guy popped off, and we were going to get after it a little bit, so we did that. What are you doing up here? I just kissed a pretty woman, Joe, on radio. We've never done that before, have we? I know. All right. Hitman, I owe you lunch. We're going to get together. We're going to do it. Okay? What are we going to do right now?
I'm looking forward to it.
I will, Joe. And I'll get Uncle Dave, too, because he's coming up, and we'll push Uncle Dave. Hey, lady, grab that microphone. Can we pull her over? What are you doing here?
I am here to see you.
Now, we have a great real estate sponsor, and, we became friends. You have this, I don't know how much time we got, Billy, but you have this amazing story of your life. Would you take a second with us? Everybody knows Keller Williams, and tell the story if you would, real quick.
About being adopted?
Yeah.
So one of the things, I'm Gay Ribble with the Ribble Group, and we have a worthy cause that we give to families who are adopting. And the reason that we do that is that I am an adoptee myself. And I have a really neat story in that I was adopted through an adoption agency that 2 months earlier didn't exist, by parents who 2 months earlier didn't think that they were ever going to adopt, and by a birth mom who thought that she was going to be relinquishing me to a different family. And so when all of those things, you would have never known, and it all came together so that I could be hand-placed by God into the family that I am in.
It's an amazing story.
30 seconds. So it's pretty cool.
And this is a wonderful woman, and straight up, if you need help, Keller's there. I love you for coming. I was unexpected, but thank you. Look great. We have Martino coming up, Dave Logan coming up, Tancredo coming up. I'll put my grandson with us in a little bit. Corey Voorhees is here. Frank DeAngelis is here. The one and only Kris Olinger. We got more to come. Please stay here. Give yourselves a hand. The 50s, my grandson's here. So many wonderful people. Tom Martino's here. I mean, there's people, again, and Debra's here. And we got plans. 710 KNUS. Good morning, everyone. We've had a lineup of stars. Started this morning with Phil Boyce, Vice President of Broadcasting. Then Danny Hopkins, who's here, gave me my break. Robert Spencer, and then we had Tim Furnish, Professor David Smith, Mark Pearson, Rick Lewis, who's on air right now, Mandy Connell from KOA did the show, Dick Wadhams, Ted Trimba, Don Wrege, Lee Larsen, who hung the moon, Danny Caplis, and the hitman Joe Williams. This woman I want to introduce, her name is Kris Olinger. She ran the best, tightest ship in the world. Mike Rosen's here. We always called her KO, and it was her initials, Kris Olinger, but it meant something else.
Oh, you had another name for me, Peter.
Nurse Ratchet.
Yes, and I want to return this to you.
Oh, no.
Yes. Yes, the hat.
Did you guys ever? It's the hat. I gave this to Kris. If you ever read One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, well, the big nurse was Nurse Ratchet. And Christine and I were working together, and I started calling her Nurse Ratchet. And I was Billy Bibbit.
Yep.
And she was Nurse Ratchet.
And I had scolded him a couple of times, and totally justified. And the next thing I know, he calls me into the studio, and he says, we have a new name for you, Nurse Ratchet.
Nurse Ratchet.
And here's your hat. And
years later, it returns.
And so it's for the next Nurse Ratchet. They'll always be one in your life.
The other part of it was her dad and I were friends.
Yes.
And Big Evil.
Yes, and he loved you more than he loved me.
I love Big Evil.
It's true.
Christine and I worked together. I was thinking, well, what I would say to people, like when Mike was here and Lee was here. You and I went through the Ramseys together.
Yes. And that was amazing. I mean, Peter, I have to say, you are just a natural talk show host. Your instincts, I mean, unbelievable. But I remember it was Christmas.
Yes.
I think it was Christmas Day that you called me, and you got this thing in Boulder. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I've got to do it. I've got to do it. And here's what's happening. There's something wrong here. And I'm like, okay, go for it. And I mean, but your instincts like that were unbelievable.
But I want to pick, because right there is Frank DeAngelis. And when after Emily Keyes was murdered, and we put that parade on.
Yes. Yeah.
Christine was there. Frank's there, and you gave that the green light.
Yes.
We'll come back to the Ramseys, but you could have said no to that one, but you said sure. And remember off your office there was a little patio.
Yes.
And we're sitting in that patio, Frank and they said the little girl liked parades, and you jumped on that. That was very cool.
Well, it was great to work with you because, like I say, you were you just had instincts. You just like the perfect talk show host. You knew what worked and how to do it, and were fearless about taking on.
We took some heat.
Yeah, you took some heat.
Well, but Christine was always a great buffer. I mean, she'd come in. We just had Lee on. The cool thing about Kris is she'd come in, close the door, and you knew something was going to happen. And then there's a thing called a skimmer, and she'd play a tape. And Kris has a great ear for radio, and she'd say, and right here's Corey Voorhees, by the way. If you remember went through that, when Corey was the ICE agent, and we did fundraisers for Corey, and we stood up for Corey, and we were being, I forgot to tell Caplis when we was on a show, Lynn Wood threatened to sue me and Caplis. Now Lynn Wood, who's,
working for,
the rats in the outhouse say Lynn Wood crazy, and and Caplis turned around to Lynn Wood and he said, sue us. Come on, bring it. And of course, but you went through that stuff with us, with me.
Yeah. That's what made it all really interesting and fun. Though I have to say, the one time I was surprised was when Princess Di was killed in the car accident.
Ouch.
And the beloved Princess Di and the People's Princess and, Peter, I turn on the radio and Peter's...
We're the Irish.
going, she was a whore.
No, I didn't say that.
And I'm like, what? What?
I said, She was a brood mare for the royal family. And,
I don't know how this is going to play.
I don't either. I remember.
The People's Princess. But,
Oh.
yeah, but that was kind of, that was
I ended up.
the way you rolled.
Oh.
Yeah.
I ended up actually dating a woman who was a huge Princess Diane fan until somebody told her that story. Christine is, I mean, we just had Lee on and Dave's coming up, and Mike Rosen's here, and Tommy Martino and Caplis. There was a time that it was the golden age, wasn't it?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I am so grateful that, I mean, I think we first worked together in like early 80s.
No, I'll tell you when.
82.
I was a traffic reporter, and you were a newswoman, and they had to play disco music.
Yes.
Tell that story.
Yeah. That was, my first job was at a station. It was then KTLK, which has changed a million times since then. But it was, the format was disco music. So I did the news. I started on overnights. My first job, I was so excited. And they said, you're going to have to read the news over disco music because we don't want the audience to tune out. And if we play the disco music, you know, that's when the radio stations still had to run news. If we play disco music, they'll keep listening to you. And I'm like, great. So it was like, bum. And you try and, you know, it'd be like 3 people dead.
Yeah, 3 people were dead.
And I thought, you know, I'd sit there and think, I am never going to get a real
In the background, love to love you, baby. Yeah. 5 people were shot to death today. And I'm the traffic reporter. And Kris would cue, I was Berg's traffic reporter, and that's where I met you. And I didn't know you, but I was the guy doing it. And they played disco music. Danny Hopkins is here. They played disco music under the traffic report. Which was cool with me. I didn't care because we were stealing those traffic reports anyhow.
I didn't care either. I was just happy to have a job. But I really did think that was going to be, you know, my career.
My boss, Brian Taylor's here. We're talking about old radio stories. And he said, do you remember when you came into work and the wire machine just kept running all night on one place? There was this like black line. And I said, what did you do, boss? He said he went out in the car and turned on the competitor and wrote down their newscast and went in and told it on the air. We did stuff like that.
Yeah. No, those were the days.
Do you remember?
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say when we
I was
did.
going to say that my other favorite, when we were doing the news talk hour, I don't know who came up with that. And, you know, you had to do 2 interviews an hour, and somehow I got stuck producing it. One was a pro, one was a con, whatever, anyway. So one day you call me in to the studio, like you would do. People would walk by the studio, and you'd say, hey, Kris, come on in. Hey, Kenny Marks, come on in. You know, just, and I came in, and he said, you know, Kris, we're having a contest. And I'm like, really? Yeah. And he said, and the prize, the winner, gets a date with you.
Win a date with Kris Olinger.
And I'm like, oh, no, you don't. Not that I didn't love Peter's listeners, but that was like,
And Berg was doing the dating game at the turn of the century or something, and that blew up in everybody's face too. But he would do on-air dating.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
And I say, AB, we're going to get jammed up doing this. Nah, not a problem. Well, it was a problem.
Yeah.
But the best Berg story, and it goes back to the Christine, and it's my one I told. I used to come to work with tons of books and do all kinds of stuff. And he would dress like $1 million, and we had a true story. I mean, who dressed better than him?
No one.
No one. And we had a tiny office about as big as this stage. It was Larry Crandall,
Yeah.
me, and Helen.
Yes.
And you would rarely come in there.
No. But I know I would, at that point, you could still smoke
Yeah.
in the building. And Allen Berg would, in between breaks in his show, he'd walk up and down the hall smoking,
Oh, yeah.
talking to himself. Oh, I was,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
He would come out of the studio with a cigarette and come down and talk to me and then go back and talk.
Yeah.
But we did that. We got, wait a minute. So we had this little tiny office, and it was you and I and Crandall, Alan and I and Crandall, and that's where we ginned up all of our crazy ideas. You never walked in there. I remember that. You would stand in the hallway and ask us to come out.
Yeah.
Sit still for a second. I want to bring, and we talk about raising people. This is Dominic, and Dominic and I go back to Channel 12. How many years ago?
1996, if you can believe it.
And this is a young intern at the time. And how many young interns did we ruin? Between
Too many to
too
count.
many to count.
Yeah.
And Dominic's at Channel 12, and he's an intern. and we're doing Inside Out with Patti Calhoun, and who else was on that show?
Well, you had back in '96,
Yeah.
you had Al Knight, Pierre Jimenez, you had Sue O'Brien. Those were the classics. That's how you started.
And we did this show that was on Channel 12, and Dominic's this kid that's kind of running around. You like coffee? Want some water?
I still do that, by the way. If you want some coffee or water,
Today
I'm
he
happy to.
hosts the show. I still watch the show, and I am so proud of you, and I ask you to come down here today.
Peter, it means the absolute world to me for me to be here. It is a cast of thousands. It is some of these folks that you have on that I get a chance to be one of these voices, just incredible. And the audience needs to know that for everything that Peter has done for radio for decades in Colorado and beyond, he's been able to do that for television as well. He not only did our Friday night show, Colorado Inside Out, he did the live show, Colorado Inside Out Live. You were interviewing people. You're working with us twice a week, and it was just amazing. We're
Always had a good time.
Yeah, it's our 30th season because of what you did for the show.
When Patti Calhoun had Patty leave, but there were two things people wouldn't come in. Do you remember when Dr. Laura would not come in the building because I was there? Were you working there then?
I don't remember that, but it doesn't surprise me.
She would not come in the building.
Yeah.
And then and Patty said it first, but Mayor Webb was in the building. And if Mayor Webb was in the building, Patty and I had to leave. and I always took pride in that, like, okay, you don't want to work. But I had offended Dr. Laura somehow.
It's one of your many badges of honor, Peter.
Yeah, you're Dr. Laura, but I said no. But between you guys, I mean, we have had us a time.
Yes, you have. We have. And I just want to say, again, on behalf of everything you've done for PBS 12 over these many years, thank you. You've made the whole show possible. And with all the different luminaries that Peter has interviewed, I think the one you're probably going to put on your mantle as remembering was Nell Newman, the daughter of Paul Newman, who came on a show on Channel 12, and Peter had to. People have pulled teeth easier than Peter did getting answers out of Nell Newman. That was one of the best interviews in your time.
I asked her how she was, and she was stuck for an answer. So that was like. But the other one was when Edmund Hillary.
Yes.
Sir Edmund Hillary is the first man on Everest, and I remember as a boy about as old as my grandson now being enthralled with that. And I believe that there were Yetis on there. So we get an interview with Sir Edmund Hillary because of Dominic. And I'm in awe. We did Madeleine Albright, too, who just passed away.
Absolutely.
And I'm sitting there, and this guy was so incredibly great. You could not ask him a question that he didn't have an eloquent. He was very British and very proper, and he was Sir Edmund. We put that one together.
Well, but see, that's the beauty of having Peter Boyles as your host. He can go from Sir Edmund Hillary to Nell Newman and everybody in between.
Wrestling.
And because you have read almost every book out there, no one can stump you, Peter.
Madeleine Albright tells me a story. She said she meets Kim Il-sung in North Korea, Kim's father, Jung-il. And she said, I looked down, and his lifts on his shoes were higher than mine. That's what I remember about Madeleine Albright. But she was a delight. And as long as you were good to those people, they were good to us.
Well, and they knew, with you as a host, they knew they had someone who had done their homework, that could keep up with them. That's rare in this business. And that also helped that no one was going to catch you speeding. You were going to catch them speeding all the time. Like, no, wait a second. I've read the book. I've been there. That is a distinct talent that so few have.
And Brother Jeff had the black market right around the corner. Mm-hmm. And that's where I met Brother Jeff, as at Channel 12. And Frank, did you do that 12 show with us? I thought so. Mm-hmm. And Frank DeAngelis in the aftermath of Columbine. Corey, I don't think you ever did the 12 show with us. I don't think you were allowed. I think you were still under house arrest or something. You weren't allowed. But it was such a wonderful experience with Patricia and Sue O'Brien, who is gone now. Sue ran the Denver Post editorial page.
Yes.
And she ran it with an iron fist. Al Knight, Uncle Al, the kiddie's pal. And he was absolutely brilliant. And there's a round table of those people and a Pierre who's now gone. And it would be, and I don't even know how I got picked to do it. They said, you want to try the show out? And I said, yeah, and fell in love with it. I was also working for KO at the time. And we would go in and we'd work 2 days a week there. And let me come back to Christine for a minute. How much has radio changed since then?
I think there are it's changed and it hasn't. I mean, I think that the basics of good radio are still the same, and what it takes to succeed is still the same. It's all about the person.
Getting ready.
And having the right person on the air that people really want to listen to and talk to, and that, I don't think that will ever change. I think the business part of it has made it a lot more difficult for people like you to go off and just do crazy things that keep the listener engaged.
You can't do it anymore.
Yeah, it's tougher. It's much tougher, but and it was so much fun doing, getting into trouble.
And you couldn't, back then in the nightmare years, you couldn't wait to get to work to see what happened to people over the weekend.
Yeah.
You go, what did you do? And there were remotes. This is a great remote, but there were remotes like my boss, Kelly Michaels, was talking about, or Brian was talking about, the radio station sends you to the car lot on Saturday morning to do cut-ins, and there's nobody there but you and the guy that owns the car lot. And you learn stuff, and you learn by getting shot at, and that's how you learned. And what was your first gig?
There was a time where we did remotes from the stock show for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the stock show, but 2 weeks every day.
And Berg went to the stock show.
Yeah, and that was always classic.
And Berg, who always made fun of all that kind of stuff, and I loved it. I always loved the stock show. I loved the rodeo. And we went out to do the morning show at KOA at the stock show. Berg goes out in the afternoon. He's there about 2 days. He comes back and says, God, I love these people. You remember when you made the thing in the bottle, guess what's in the bottle, and it blew up?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the creator of that is here, Kenny Marks.
Yeah.
It was Guess the Mess.
Guess the Mess.
And it happened to be cow manure.
Which is toxic.
In a plexiglass box, and the fire department came up and to
was
Kenny
fermenting.
And said, this is going to blow up.
Yeah.
And so that promotion kind of went down the tubes.
we did haunted houses, and Kenny and Darrel are here. Daryl Luby and Kenny Danon, and I don't know where I brain gassed the haunted house, but I said, let's go to a haunted house. And you said, okay, fine. I went the first time by myself and spent the night, and then we figured, well, this is a ratings getter. And then Daryl and Kenny would go again and again and again and again and again. And fellas, I can't tell you what those nights were all about, but I don't know. They were telling me I got a break. Dominic Danuzzi, he wore a tie.
This is a moment in history, Peter. I absolutely had to. It's been an honor to be here. Thank you for everything you've done for Denver, for Colorado, for me.
I love this young man, Christine. I wouldn't
Peter,
be here without her.
You're one of a kind, and I am just feel so lucky and so blessed that I've had this experience with you and this career with you.
I'm so glad you're
here. The
here.
memories are the best. Pickleball is next. And
Golf.
Kenny Marks, he plays three times a day. He's in sales, so he can. He plays 3 times a day.
Play pickleball?
He's not very good, but we'll get together and have a pickleball game.
I see people play pickleball all the time.
Yeah.
My daughter plays pickleball.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never played.
Do you play golf?
Yeah.
Rosen's this great
of.
golfer.
Yeah. There's a whole new world ahead of you.
Motorcycles.
And it's great.
Let me do a turnaround again. This is 710 KNUS, the morning show. Highs in the 50s today, light rain in the View House, I-25 off of I-7. That's Billy Thorpe. We have Mike Roberts coming up, Dave Logan, Tancredo, the best man I know, Frank DeAngelis. So we'll get the boys up too. I love you, Christine.
Love you too.
Love you.
Love you too.
Dominic.
Love you.
You've torn it up, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right back after this in the View House. I wasn't sure about this when I went through what I went through, and my boss, Brian Taylor, and Billy said, one more once. I said, you got yourself a deal. We are in the View House one more time where the cowboy rides away. This has just been an amazing show. We have had incredible people. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, lots of times people don't recognize faces. This is Tom Martino. Please. Well, my boy, what do you think?
I was shocked. Somebody called me and said, there's something weird going on. Peter's mumbling through his live spot, and I said, okay, so what's weird?
So
Anyway.
far?
Anyway, you know, I called you that day.
You did.
And I couldn't believe it.
I was in the ER when you called me.
Yeah. You said, Tom, it's time.
Yeah. I have so many friends who have said, I can tell them who said to me, when it's time to retire, you'll know it. And I always thought, okay, sure. And then that's true. When it's time to go, you'll know when it's time to go. And
Peter, you extended my career. You really did, in a few ways. In one way, you and I were back to back.
Yep.
And we accounted for about 70% of the revenue for that station.
Yeah, we did.
And I see him being escorted out one day, and I think, oh no, my friend. Great! They're going to really need me now. No, and then in another way, I don't want to get into it, but there were a few humps in the road, and Peter would call me. And here's what he said. Don't address them. Just do what you do best. That's what you said.
What can they do to you?
Don't make things bigger than they are.
Absolutely. I mean, I went through it. That's not a secret. I was working on the morning show at KHOW. I'd been there 22 years, I think. I got a little sideways with somebody, and we were talking about...
You know, I was there. It was totally exaggerated. Totally. No, seriously. It wasn't like you slapped him in the face.
Like a Will Smith moment. But, you know, and Mike Rosen's, I think, still here, but they were trying to drop everybody's salaries, and that's when the wonderful people like Lee Larsen and Kris Olinger, and they were no longer part of the scene, and you know, they knew that we were, you know, there's what I used to always say, there's no I in team, but there is in radio.
And you, by doing that to KNUS, you broke the record for how many stations you worked at.
More stations than Conelrad.
And then how many owners have you worked? Owners. Because at iHeart alone, before iHeart, it was Clear Channel. Before Clear Channel, it was J-Core. Before J-Core, it was...
GE.
Well, no, way back, GE.
No, but GE, when I went to work over there...
It was first GE.
There's an Allen Berg story. Berg gets kicked off the air because of many things that he did, but he had made fun of this woman who was a guest on his show, and everybody got mad, and so they were giving him 3 days off. And we were working for another really, really great man by the name of Joel Day. So I get off the air, and Berg didn't... There was a noon news block. I get off the air at noon, and the PD or somebody said, Joel wants to see you. So I got down to Joel's office, and Joel said, I got to give Allen 3 days. And I said, why? And he said, because there's all this corporate grief about what he had said on the air, and we don't need to go over what he said, but he said it. And so I said, what do you want to do? He said, I want you to stay here in the room with me to try and buffer it because he loves you and everything. I said, all right. Berg comes in the door with a puppy dog. And it was a dog he was given Joel Day. It was a dachshund that they named Bergie. And so hey, Joel, you know, it's a dog. And I'm looking at him, oh, this is going to get good. And Joel says, sit down, Allen. And I'm sitting there. And he said, I got to let you go for 3 days. But he got him a condo in Vail. So he could go to the condo. And he was with Linda McVeigh at the time, with Linda McVeigh when he passed. But so they went up there. So he's all mad. He's raving. He had to know how he raved. And he said, come on, let's go take a look. And so we found a flow chart of General Electric stuff, and there's like GE and then all the things. It comes down and it says household appliances, and then
broadcasting.
You got it. You remember that chart? Yes. And it said broadcasting properties. Berg turns around to me and said, sons of bitches got us lower than toaster ovens. True Berg story. You were working there then.
Yes. And Peter and I are involved in this documentary about Allen.
Yeah.
And Allen was known as this dogmatic, radical person. And we would go to lunch now and then, Peter, Allen, myself, and sometimes Ron Zappolo.
Yeah, Ronnie would go, yeah.
So we'd go to lunch, and Allen would say this, they really think I mean it. And I said, well, Allen, where do you stand? He says, I don't care. He says, I don't mean anything I say as long as I get an audience. Right?
It's true.
One day, Peter says, this was years ago, he says, we should adopt that Allen Berg kind of attitude. So why don't you say one day you come in I don't know if you remember saying, and punch me in the face.
Oh, yeah, like pro wrestling. I think everything's pro wrestling. You know, going to tag somebody.
He says, come on in and let's do a fight and see what happens.
I tell you where I got the idea. I'm working in pro wrestling in the ring with the Vachons, Mad Dog and his brother Paul, the Butcher. And they tell me this gig that they did in Montreal, there was a guy, and Canadian radio went like, they're all begin with C's, and they began like the country, Canada, owned the stations. And they had this guy, he was a World War II hero, he was French-Canadian, he had been injured in the wars in a wheelchair. And they do a work where they pretend like they're knocking him out of the wheelchair and beating him up because he's a guy in a wheelchair. Paul and the Butcher. And of course, they're working. And I thought, and I said, happened? He said, oh, he said, we sold the place out. And I said, damn, that's a good idea. So I wanted Martino to come in and punch somebody, punch Berg, or somebody punch Allen, or
right.
Just to, you know,
let's stir it up.
Well, Berg would do that. He'd always find a way to get into papers. He'd get arrested for something, or he stole a telephone one time. He ripped a phone out of the wall because it wouldn't give him back his money because he wanted to get into papers. He would get into papers just by pissing people off. And no, seriously. And people would call me up that knew me. Can you talk to Martino? And I'd say, no, I'd rather not. I don't want to talk to Martino. But Tommy always pulled it off. And it was when radio was. We worked together.
Yeah, and it's changing. I'll tell you how. I was shopping for a car, a newer car with my son, and I said, where's the radio, the AM radio? He said, we don't put them in cars anymore.
Yeah.
They don't put AM radio. No. Did you know that? No. They're not even put in new, well, maybe some might, but the ones we were looking at, there were no AM radios. But think about it. So you need your phone to listen.
Yeah, I know. Again, as this is the last one, and I'll be still working. I want you to come over and do a shoot now. You can go do a YouTube. I wanted you to do this for the longest time and sit and tell stories you can't tell here. Because, as you probably know, the government controls the airwaves. That's why when you go on the satellite or you go to YouTube or you do the kind of stuff Joe Rogan does,
that's right.
You're inviting them into your home. But right now the airwaves belong to the people.
Under the Communications Act, no longer.
Yeah, and that's
no longer with cable and
no, you can't with
YouTube.
Those guys, but with us, and that's why I think Mike may still be here. But when Mike called that guy the body part, because the guy was a flag burner, and Rosen went on the air to his credit, and he body parts the guy, and that ended up in the Supreme Court. And that's why they okayed burning flags, was because of what happened with Mike.
And now, of course, the YouTube and all of those are controlled by big tech.
Big tech will do it.
So you might still get censored.
Well, sure, of course, but not me and you. Winky, winky. But I'm going to continue working for Salem. I'm going to continue to do voice work, make appearances if Brian asked me to do it. But I got scared.
Yeah.
And I heard one go by my ear, and I said, you know what? And I have a great Dr. Nichols and Dr. Prager, and of course the one and only Julie McCallan, and everything that goes with it. But Tommy.
Hey, did you hear Mayor Hancock's having a party too? Not quite like this one.
He and Cal Clark? They're getting together?
Yeah.
Talking about walking on the bodies, right? Yeah. But I want to sneak my grandson up here for a second because it's important to me. And we have, Liam, why don't you come up here and sit in Mr. Martino's seat just for a second. I never had anybody tell me how much you could love somebody. There's a great line, I'm going to pull this down for you. There's a great line that Mark Twain wrote. The reason that grandchildren and grandparents love each other so much is they share a common enemy. This is my grandson, Liam Joseph Boyles. He picks football winners. Who'd you have in the Super Bowl?
The Chiefs.
You had the Chiefs?
Yeah.
Yeah, we lost on that one. Who'd you have in the playoffs? You had the Chiefs. You picked all four. Dina Pastorini's here, who's a rambling gambler, and the kid's picking football games. And I'm telling Dina, the kid's picking games. She said, put the kid on the phone. You Dutch in school today? You're going to school?
I'm on spring break.
Oh, you're on spring break.
Yeah.
Oh, man. This is a remarkable, brilliant young guy, and we play a game, and he can really do math. And we'll be in my truck, and he'll say, he calls me Pappy, and he'll say, give me a math problem, and I'll go, what's 835 and 415? And a kid gives me an answer, and I always go, you're right. I don't know the answer. I would say, like, here's a question and an answer. And he'd go, well, it's this. Plus, he's a big pro wrestling fan. He's a pretty fair baseball player and football player. And his dad, Morgan's here. And here's the weird thing, is when he was this guy's age, I remember going on the ball field the night after the tragedy that happened to Allen, and you were about that age. Weren't you about the same age when that happened? And I remember coming out on the ball field with my son, and now everything comes around again. You're doing good?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are we going to do today?
Eat breakfast.
Eat some breakfast. All right. We have something called the guys. That man over there, his dad, and me, and the three of us have breakfast at Perkins. What's your favorite thing at Perkins?
Bacon, eggs, and a waffle.
There it is. And he can eat. The boy can shovel. Because sometimes I think the Chinese are in the driveway and this kid's eating. Like your pappy loves you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael Roberts is with us. We'll do a quick turnaround. Hey, Mike, thanks for, we can break it now? Do it hard? From Westward is Mike Roberts, who's been so good to me for all these years. Hey, Mikey, good morning. Thanks for coming up on the air. Patty was with us.
Good morning. That's a tough act to follow.
Yeah, he's a good kid. His grandfather loves him. You have written about radio and television in the city now for how many years?
Well, I have been at Westward since October of 1990.
Wow.
And I've written about radio pretty much since shortly after I arrived.
Wow. So I get to ask this. I ask it of Kris, and I ask it of Joe and everyone else. What's changed?
Besides everything?
Yeah, thank you.
Pretty much everything has changed in Denver radio. There have been so many changes in regard to the number of stations that companies can own, the way that the stations monetize their business, the number of live and local hosts versus syndicated hosts. The business has just turned upside down several times over those decades.
It really has, and it's true with the newspaper business too. And I say this publicly and privately. You and Allen and Patricia have been able to keep Westward alive, and that, in this day and age, Michael, that's an accomplishment.
Yeah, really, all the credit goes to Patti. She, founded this paper back in the 1970s and is the beating heart of the paper to this day. So she deserves all the credit.
She was here this morning.
I'm just happy that the platform is still there and that all these years later, we're capable of stirring things up and getting people interested in things that maybe they're not able to read about anywhere else.
What's the most heat you ever took for a story? What's the most heat you ever took?
Boy, that is a tough question.
No.
Here's kind of a funny answer to that question. The first death threat I received was over a Grateful Dead review. So basically, the folks out there would be grateful if I was the one who was dead.
Wow.
That was back in late 1990, and it was a shock to me. That was something that I was completely unfamiliar with at that time, that somebody could be so upset that I didn't like Jerry Garcia as much as they did, that they would threaten to kill me. So
Sure.
It's it has been going since then.
But you remember the great line was, when you're over the target, you catch the most flack. And heavens knows, Patricia and I and you and Pendergast and so many people have taken heat. If you can't, and Martino was just here a second ago, taking heat is, if you're not willing to take the heat, I guess, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, this is not the business for you if that's the case. So you have to be willing to step into the arena and give as good as you get. And, hopefully people will be able to process all of that in a manner in which everybody is just talking and exchanging ideas as opposed to doing anything more than that. That's the idea. We want to start conversations. We want to get people thinking. And I know that's something that has been important to you over the years as well.
You work with somebody that I, if I had more time and maybe do it on the shoot, is Alan Pendergast. And who was better than Alan? I mean, nobody. Patti Calhoun gave him free rein and gave you free rein. And that's really, I had Lee Larsen with us, and Chris Olinger was just with us. The guy that would give you the free rein and not try and pull you in. And Alan did incredible work on the Ramseys and, Columbine, and he's just a gift. He could just do it. So, yeah.
That's exactly right. Basically, the whole idea is that you create an environment where people can thrive. And Alan, certainly one of the most gifted writers who has been in Denver during the time that I've been here.
Oh, man.
And you're exactly right. He's done work that has stood the test of time. And there are lots of other folks who have gone through Westward who have done the kind of reporting and writing that really makes this city better.
Absolutely.
People more informed, more able to see what matters and what doesn't matter.
I can say this as first of all, it's just a thank you, and you've made the city better. You've made the city more honest, and
It's on that as well. But please go ahead.
No, I was going to say you did. You made the city better. You and Patricia and Alan, and you keep their feet to the fire, and a lot of stuff that people won't do, you're always willing. So, Michael, I got Kenny Danon sitting there. I'm going to stick him with me, but my respect is immense. We're doing that shoot show now, and I want you to come and get Patricia and maybe Alan, the three of us or the four of us will do a show together. I love you and I respect you, and I really appreciate everything you've done.
Congratulations on a great career.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It is 8:42, 18 before the hour. Ladies and gentlemen, if there was ever anybody that went along with every crazy idea I ever had, it's this guy. Ladies and gentlemen, he's the wizard, Kenny Danon.
Hey.
Where'd Luebbe go? Where's Luebbe?
I'm sorry?
Where's Luebbe? Was Luebbe here? Did I see Luebbe?
He's here.
Darrel, you know what?
There
you
he
want
is, right there.
Darrel's on later. Stop doing this live. How many times, we went to Haiti together.
Oh.
Yep, that was one. We went.
Yeah.
The haunted houses. How many haunted houses do you think we did?
How many years were you?
30.
Okay.
30 houses.
Yeah.
We worked at BZ together.
Yeah.
You KWBZ. And then where did you, I don't know how we ended up, well, I know you were there, and because Dave Logan's coming up. You traveled with the Broncos for how many years? 30?
Almost 30.
Yeah, almost 30 years.
Yeah.
Every stadium, every remote Super Bowl, playoff game.
Well, now there's a lot of stadiums that I haven't been to.
Oh, man. Oh,
because they built a whole bunch of new ones. So, anyway.
We always called him the wizard because one way or the other, he could get you on the air. Like, I swear to God, we went to Haiti, and after the quake, me and Kenny, and we lived in an orphanage.
Yeah.
And we're up on, the only time you could take a shower was when it rained at night. We go up, I'm not making this
Go up on the balcony and
take a shower, take your clothes off and take a shower. And I can't tell you, how much it means for you to walk in here.
I appreciate that, Pete.
We showed them.
Hey.
Do we show them?
Sorry?
Did we show them? We showed them.
We did.
We showed them.
Yep.
And Darrel's coming up a little bit later. But Kenny and Darrel and I'd come up with these brain gas ideas. And when DeAngelis comes up, we'll talk about being in Christine's office. And I think it was Keys said, the little girl liked the parade. This guy,
Absolutely.
Kenny. And Kenny, oh, well. And we did a parade. And
never saw an idea we couldn't put on the air.
Never saw. Well, somebody said this has written all over it, and we go, yeah, we're right.
That's right.
I just love you very much, and I'm glad you're here.
Hey, same goes.
Thank you, Wiz.
Yeah.
We're going to take a turn around here, and Billy Thorpe will tell me what's next. It is 8:45, 16 minutes before the hour 9. I got about an hour and a half. Hang on. Thank you for being here. Dave Logan coming up. Tom Tancredo coming up. A whole lot more. 710 KNUS.
Thanks for being a part of the Peter Boyles Senior Send-Off.
Up here, I'm already gone.
The Peter Boyles Grand
Mike's going hot.
Sitting in the morning. 6 minutes before the hour of 9 o'clock. 710 KNUS, Denver's talk station. One more time from the View House, I-25 at Arapahoe Road. I'm in a motorcycle club, and I talk about motorcycling a lot, but the club, the Ugly Brothers, and some of my brothers are here, Ugly Tom and Ugly Jay, and who else is here? Ugly Troy, and the guys made it, and it makes me feel good. Also, Karen Parker, who ran the Fish Company, spit that out, Peter, is here, who I love and adore. Coming up, but this is to talk about people that influence your life. Please say good morning. Do the best I know. Jefferson County Sheriff, this is Jeff Shrader, who has been such a mentor. And of course, now it can be told, he is my text brother in the morning, Sheriff Steve Reams. And we text each other all through the show, and they have been kind enough to come down and join me on the end of this. I've always told how I met Jeff was we're washing motorcycles, and Jeff says, there's just some other biker guy, and he says, let's go over and look at the new model, whatever year it was, like 2004s or something. I said, okay. So we're walking around the dealership, I swear to God, and I said, I'm Peter Boyles, and he says, I know who you are. And I said, who are you? He said, I'm the sheriff of Jefferson County. It's a true story. Unassuming. He put MC1 together. He put the parade together for that was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Congratulations on your retirement.
How much more? What do you got? What do you got?
9 months, 3 days, and a wake up.
I can't tell you what gifts these two men are. Steve, I want Steve to get into politics. Seriously, I do, because we need him. Brilliant sheriff and a dear friend. And in the mornings when I would do the show, and I would say, I got a great text from a friend of mine in law enforcement.
9 times out of 10, that was probably me.
10 times out of 10, it was him. And I don't know what you guys, what does all of this mean and all this craziness we're doing? Sheriff, we've been pals a long time. I've been to your home. We've ridden together. We've had ourselves a hell of a good time.
We have had a good time. I wanted to go back a little bit further than that. And I told you about this one of the first times we met, that I read an article, and I can't remember if it was in the Post or the News, because I was delivering both at the time when I was 15 years old, a story that you wrote about gang wars at North High School.
Yes.
And that was the first influence of Peter Boyles on my life, well, other than All-Star Wrestling, watching that.
His father-in-law is this huge wrestling fan, and we've had lunch just to do that. Just to talk pro wrestling with your father-in-law.
Yep.
It was, I mean, they're just wonderful people, and I took a lot of heat for that story too, because there's no such thing as the other. Where did we meet? Where did you and I meet?
Well, I think you and I met over the red flag discussions, but I first started listening to you, I guess hardcore, when the heroin injection sites were coming up.
Okay.
And County Sheriffs of Colorado, we were trying to figure out how to defeat that bill. And I tuned into the radio, and I'm like, we don't have to do much. Peter's got it licked.
Stephen Tubbs, too. He's here,
yeah,
and Mark Crowley.
The station altogether put that bill to rest. And, you know, for those of us in law enforcement, you look for where those allies are, and you've always been one of those allies for those of us that are out working the streets. And you've had our back, and, you know, we're sad to see you go, but you deserve to ride off into the sunset.
In 9 months, how many days are we going to be riding together? 9 months? Tell me when.
9 months, 3 days, and a wake up.
We'll be riding together. Good rider, great rider, and I've been trying to talk him into a motorcycle, but he's still going, I got more to do. I don't want to flush anybody out, but I would love it if you got into politics.
Well, you know, running for sheriff is politics, and
I know,
that's about as much of it as I can take.
I know, but bigger and greater. And you as well. I know they've danced with you a little bit. Truly, you guys, I can think of no two better men. And in a time where I don't know what's next for the Republican Party, these two men could make it happen. They really could. They're just.
Thank you, Peter.
I can't. And And when I get jammed up and things happen, I call these guys. You know, I've always come and say, what do you think I should do? And Jeff has never, and you've been at every event. You've stood with us. You gave the award of the boots, and we both have a pair of boots, Frank and I, and I don't know.
Well, you've stood with law enforcement. You helped us get and made MC1 what it is. MC1 is, the original MC1 was Dave Baldwin, a longtime friend and coworker of mine, and you stepped up to help that and that family. And on behalf of Mark Miller, Jeff Steinhardt, the entire MC1 Foundation,
the guys,
they all send you congratulations on your retirement. We thank you for the support that you've given. For those who want to put it on their calendar, September 25th is the MC1 Honor Run this year.
And DeAngelis did that too. And what was your final out for you? What can we do?
You know, Peter, I don't know how you'll be replaced in the morning, but if you're going to do any guest spots or anything like that, I'm sure the crowd would love to hear one more imaginary Thanksgiving Day parade.
Well, we've talked about
that. Is radio gold.
We've talked about it. Billy talked about it this morning to come back and do the parade. I love you both very, very much, and I know their families. I know your son. Of course, your wife is absolutely wonderful, and she's always Jane, and she's just. These guys are lucky men.
She sends her love and congratulations.
She's the best. Do a turnaround into the final hour. We're coming out of the box with Dave Logan. We're not ready yet.
No, you're just not breaking.
We're not what yet?
No, we don't break.
We don't break yet. Oh, that's right. It's the 9 o'clock.
Yes. Did you just get here?
Did you just Billy Thorpe? Did you just get here?
Hey, think even if it hurts.
Both of the old producers, Billy and Casey are here. Jimmy Sangenberger's here too. You know, and Darrel's coming up. What do we got coming up in the hour? We're coming. This is my boss, Brian Taylor. So we can't take a break here. What do we do? What do you want to do, Billy? Billy, what do you want to do here?
We're trying to get to Logan.
To get to Dave Logan.
Well, here, let's do this.
All right, let's do it.
No,
All right. All right. Oh, okay. Let me do this. All right. Thanks, boss. Thanks, you guys. Debra Flora's here, who I want to do a radio career.
Thank you, Peter.
This woman can do radio. I told you my plan. I swear to God, you would cook.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
No, and is your husband here?
He is not, but he sends his best, and he will regret always not being able to be on with you on this show, but in the future, definitely.
He worked for Vince McMahon, and for really, her husband did. We've had great conversations about pro wrestling, and he's just a really good man. And you are a delight. And
oh, thank you.
No. Everybody wanted you to sneak in, and I want you to sneak in.
Well, thank you. I'm a little busy right now running for the U.S. Senate, but we'll see how that turns out.
When they were said, there's a future for you.
Thank you so much, Peter. I
really
appreciate it.
No, I think I've listened to some of your shows, and did you do shows before you came up and hooked with us?
I did. I've done radio on Salem on and off for 10 years.
Okay.
I had a show for women called Bring It Up, and then I had the privilege of joining 710 KNUS and doing the Debra Flora Show and being the Director of Public Policy. And Peter, I want to say one of the things that people may not know is you and Stefan, when we worked together and I was the Director of Public Policy, are solely responsible, I believe, for stopping heroin injection sites. When we went down to the Capitol building, and we presented the facts to people of what happens when insane policies like that are implemented. And you led the charge on that. It's been an honor to work with you in that capacity when I was Director of Public Policy. And just to learn from you, my friend, you are a legend and you are someone I respect deeply.
Love you. Thank you. It is 3 minutes after the hour. If there ever was a man who sat down, I said this earlier, Mike Rosen, Allen Berg, and this man sat down and got it. Ladies and gentlemen, the voice of the Denver Broncos, 85 KOA, High School Coach of the Year, and one of my dearest friends in radio, Dave Logan. Uncle Dave, thanks for doing the show, man. Good morning and thank you.
Uncle Pete, how are you, my friend? And congratulations on just an unbelievably successful career. I'm really happy for you, proud of you.
You're very kind. I was telling the Hitman called me at the house, and I was telling him about we were going to meet for 10 minutes, and you were going to give me your book, and we ended up doing like 3.5 hours sitting in a start. It was wonderful. I mean, I can't tell folks what a good man Dave Logan is. And my grandson's here. One of them, he said he wants to go out and play for you. He wants to play football for Dave Logan.
Oh,
But,
that's kind. That's kind.
you know, what a career. And, you know, and you got into business through the late, great Irv Brown. Didn't Irv bring you into the business?
Yeah, he did. He and Joe both. I had just retired from the NFL, and I had known Irv a long time, and actually Irv called and said, "Hey, what are you going to do?" And I said, "I really don't have any idea. I was going to study to be an estate planner. I had no clue." And I thought about really going back and continue my career the next year because I had a couple opportunities. But Irv said, "Hey, why don't you come out and just do a Super Bowl preview show for an hour?" And so I did. And then that's sort of how it morphed into to the career. I started working with them and doing a show by myself initially, 6 to 7. And the good thing, and you and I have talked about this, the good thing, I you know, it was on a station that at dusk went to about 500 watts, and so nobody could hear me make what I'm certain was a lot of mistakes early on. So yeah, it was good. And then you and I worked together.
Yeah,
what year was that? 87 maybe.
80 fill in the blank, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's where Irv was there and the Hitman was there, and that's when I just fell in love with Joe. You know, just that this guy's just a one of a kind. And do the story.
Yep.
I promise stories because Kenny Danin's here. This is one of the all-time great radio stories, where you think you got an interview with John Elway. David, if you would. That's a great story.
Well, and I'll try to be brief about it. The Broncos were playing in Super Bowl 32, right? So they're out in San Diego. We're out there with them. We're out there for the entire week. They're playing the Green Bay Packers. So normally, and even now, I still do the coach's show and the quarterback show before the game, and then we play that in our broadcast, our 2-hour pregame show before the game starts. So sat down with Mike Shanahan and talked with him. He was great as always, and we're doing these interviews in the lobby of the hotel we were staying in. So now do the Elway interview, and he was as animated and as forthright and as confident as I've ever heard him. And Pete, he all but said, "We're going to win the game." I mean, it was just, he stopped just short of like a Joe Namath moment when Namath guaranteed that the Jets would beat the Colts in the Super Bowl. And so it was just really, it was gold in terms of radio. So we did 6 minutes and said, "Hey, thanks." And then John got up and left, and I'm like, "Fellas, I mean, that's just unbelievable." And Kenny, the wizard, had this sort of blank look on his face. He's looking at the board, of which I don't know anything going on. He goes, "Well,
we got you, Dave? Right in the middle of the payoff on the story. Did we lose him? I don't know. What happened to that? I don't know. Is that one of those pro wrestling things where they just cut the guy off, right? This is all the time, bring them all to the conclusion. We'll get him back. We'll get Dave Logan back. 7 after the hour. This is our my last Monday through Friday radio show. Peter Boyles, 710 KNUS, Billy Thorpe, everybody put it together. Thank you. Somehow Dave Logan's just dropped off. Tancredo coming up. We got more to come. I had what physicians call a TIA, and they're really kind of mini strokes, and your brain kind of gets blocked, and you can see, rightfully so, it seems like you're working okay right now, but I was taken to the Medical Center of Aurora in an ambulance before Thursday's, from this coming Thursday, actually from yesterday, three weeks ago yesterday. And it doesn't show any evidence that I had anything go wrong, but there's no question it happened. It was an event, and you know, stress plays out and all the things that go on. And it's been an interesting 14, 15 months, but it's been a long, great career. I'm gonna have all these wonderful friends that come in and talk. Long story short, I went to my boss, Brian Taylor, who's been incredibly good to me, and I said, you know, that'll be it. But we've come up with a plan that I'll be able to voice over commercials and be part of the radio station. Mark Crowley and I and Billy will continue the shoot interview where we do on the YouTube, and I got about 9,000 ideas already, including we're bringing Dave in. Tom Tancredo's already done one, and it was very powerful to talk about his life. So anything you guys want to do, or just want to stretch it out a little bit longer? Stretch it out a little bit longer. So anyhow, this is one last time, and the place is sold out, SRO, and that makes me feel good. Whatever we had was a glitch. I'm sure Logan is like going, oh, that was good. But again, to the people who came in and sat down and did this, and it is amazing. Phil Boyce and Danny Hopkins, who gave me my first job, put me on the air, Robert Spencer and Tim Furnish, Professor David Smith, who I think I love his parts of the show. Mark Pearson was with us. Rick Lewis, of course, with the morning show on the Fox. Mandy Connell on KOA. Dick Wadhams was with us. I just heard something pop, so something must have happened. There it is. Okay, something just happened. There we go. Keep talking. There we go. Dick Wadhams was on the show, and Ted Trimba, who I just think hung the moon. Don Wrege was with us. My boss, Lee Larsen, was with us. Danny Caplis did the show, and of course, Kris Olinger did it. Joe Williams did it. Mike Rosen did it. Mike Roberts did it. Dave Logan halfway did it. And Tancredo coming up. So, all right, try it again. 12 minutes after the hour of 9 o'clock. Give yourselves a hand. Highs in the 50s, light rain. We're in a view house, I-25 and Arapahoe Road. A great place. And finish it up, Uncle Dave. Sometimes when that would happen, we'd always say, I'm just kidding, J. Edgar. We were right in the middle of this great story with Dave Logan, and the thing blowing off the air. Never happened to us before. Never. Or some guy came in and turned the mic switch off in front of you because you had offended someone. Dave Logan, of course, the voice of the Broncos, and you were starting to tell a story actually about Kenny Danon, and you had this great interview going with Elway. Dave, if you would pick it up there, please.
Yeah, I'm not sure where we lost connection, but anyway, did the interview with John. It was a great 6 minutes. He, as I said, I'm not sure how much he got. He stopped just short of guaranteeing the Broncos were going to win. I mean, it was radio gold. And so he gets up, goes back to the players' lounge. I look over at Kenny, the Wizard, and Kenny's got this blank and look on his face, and he's pale. And what it comes down to is we didn't get the interview. We did not have what was maybe the best interview that I'd ever done to that point. So program director said, Dave, you got to go back in the players' lounge and get him to do it again. I said, I'm not doing that. I am not walking in there with this dude on Friday before the game and saying, hey, we didn't get the interview. Of course, I did. John was not happy about it, but to his credit, after I got the look of death for about 15 seconds, we went back, did the interview, and it was close. He did a great job of sort of replicating his answers, but you could tell just after talking to him that the Broncos really felt like that they were going to win the game, even though they were like a 13-point underdog.
The one and only Dave Logan, Peter Boyles on one more time, 710 KNUS. Luebbe's sitting next to me, and he's going to come up on the show next. People always ask you about the best. Who was the turnaway on you? Who didn't want to talk to you? Whoever hung up on you? Whoever bailed on you, Dave?
Oh, wow. Pete.
Yeah, I do.
We've had athletes that have done that. We back in the day, we talked to Ralph Sampson.
Oh, yeah.
Herb got Ralph Sampson, the former great player, on, and Ralph was totally uninterested in that. And I asked him about 4 or 5 questions. I got one-word answers on 4 or 5 questions. Yeah. And if you do this long enough, you're certainly going to run into a few of those. And you know what? Nowadays, it's even tougher because of social media, and athletes don't feel like they have to come on and do radio shows or even print for that matter. So the game, as you know, the game has really changed.
The thing that you did, and I mentioned it when we started, and I said it was true about Allen and true about Rosen, and to a degree Martino. The minute you sat down behind the microphone, you had it. I'm serious about this. A lot of people, and you have become a radio guy. You do play-by-play, you do TV, you obviously the coaches show, everything that you've done. And when young guys are coming into the business, David, is there anything you would say about what it is we do and how you do it?
Well, first of all, I appreciate that.
It's true.
I'm not sure that's true. I benefited really, Pete, honestly, when I first got started in my career because I was around some veteran guys, including you, that understood the game. And I went into that thing completely open-minded. just trying to learn what to do and maybe more importantly, what not to do.
Yeah.
Right? And so I also benefited from starting on a station, AM 1600, that nobody could hear when I was doing my thing. So it allowed me to grow in a way that I could learn from my mistakes, and my mistakes were not fatalistic. I think a lot of guys come into the radio and TV business now, and they get put in situations that are, because of their name, that are really unfair because they're just not ready to handle that sort of size of broadcast. But I was around. I mean, you and I worked together on KNUS back in whatever it was, 87 or 88. I worked with Jim Turner. You're around some really talented people, and you just have to keep your ears open and your mouth shut and learn what you can. And that's what I was able to do.
As in the words of another moment and in the most amazing time that you and I shared, that's how they gave it to Weeb.
Well, and I know you got to go, but one quick story. We worked together in KNUS, and one day we get a call from the program director. Said, "Hey, you got to be in for a meeting at 1 o'clock." I said, "Oh, I've got an orthodontist appointment." He said, "Well, you better cancel because all the suits are going to be there. I don't know what this is about." So we're sitting in there. You and I are sitting by each other, and the suits walk in and said, "Hey, we're changing our format, and as of 1 o'clock, KNUS is no more. Those of you that have contracts, we'll talk to you about that. We're going to let you guys talk about this." And they walked out of the room.
Yeah.
So there's like 30 of us sitting in there, and a couple people were really shook up, emotional. And so I'm thinking, well, nobody does it like this. So you and I looked at each other, and I said, we're not getting fired. We're going to come back. They're going to come back with a huge marketing plan, how we're going to attack KOA, la, la, la. Well, we all got fired. So that was one of the radio stories you and I shared together from a long time ago.
And there's an aftermath, and there's in that moment, and if I ever write it, I got to do like MacArthur did, write the book and then die, and then people publish it. But David,
yeah, you would have some. Listen, you would have some great stories about 40% of which you could never tell until you were 10 feet in the ground.
We were there, brother. I love you, David, more than you ever know. Lunch real soon. Take care, man. You're the best I know. Dave
I'm
Logan.
proud of you, Pete, and I congratulate you, and I love you back. We'll talk soon.
Thank you very much. It's 18 after the hour. He moves into the microphone. We just had Kenny Danon on, and one half of the team that put, I don't know how many haunted house stories together, and how many crazy times. Great skier and longtime friend, Daryl Luby, everybody.
Hello, my friend.
What do you know, everybody?
Yes.
Huh?
So this all started with you and Marconi, right?
I was board hopping him.
I thought so.
I was board hopping Marconi. He was taking calls.
There you go.
Nah, God, D. I'm so glad you're here and came down. And
nobody could miss this show.
No, well. No. Uncle Dave, I was better than Uncle Dave.
Isn't that the truth?
People don't know what a slugger Uncle Dave is. Uncle Dave tolerated nothing.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was around a couple of those. Uncle Dave calls, hold that guy there. And the guy said, I think if I was you, I'd leave. Yeah. And Kenny.
It's been a tough, long ride, but it's been nothing but giggles.
What's your favorite of all the stuff that we pulled, all the stunts?
What's that? I'm sorry?
All the stunts that we did, what's your favorite?
I don't know how many I did. We did an awful lot.
We did.
The Halloween shows and so forth. The 2008 Democratic Convention, you and I worked up in the what was it, the Greek Theater?
No, we went and we lived. Everybody wanted to embed, and you and I wanted to embed with the protesters. And it's like when somebody goes high, you go low. Yeah. And I said, I'm going to embed with the protesters. And they kind of looked at me like, and I said, I'll bring Darrel with me. And
Lucky me.
And Bonnewell came with us. And we were embedded with the protesters.
Yep.
And that was a great show. Oh. We had the homeless guy that came every morning.
That's right.
He was our TA. He was our graduate assistant.
That's
this homeless guy comes over. He says, I got your back. And I'm going, why? And he said, you have any idea where you guys are? And it was nighttime. Yeah.
The toughest look I ever got from you was when we were doing that convention show downtown live. We went on there at 5 o'clock, and about 5:06, I get a phone call that there's a problem back down in the tech center.
And I know what the problem was. Yeah.
And I looked at you and said, Pete, I'm going to have to leave for about 20 minutes. You're here by yourself.
I remember that.
And the look you gave me, whoo,
You know, show is everything. But then later I found out what it was, and it helped somebody's life. Actually, you saved her life. But
Yeah.
and I'm sitting in the middle of that place all by myself, and you're gone.
Oh, and I don't think I've ever driven I-25 as fast as that morning.
And I think the Sheik was on the board.
You know, I think you're right.
I think I know I'm right.
I think you're right, yeah.
So, it was always pleasant when the heat was on. I said, Luby left. What? I said, no, we're here. And we couldn't even take calls, I think. It was
No.
like, I'm there with all these, you know, proto-Marxist and homeless guys. And that was a cool morning.
It was.
I love you. You need to know that. And
Well, thanks, brother. I feel much the same way.
everything that's happened, everything you've done, it's hard to believe, but here we are, right?
That's exactly
Me
right.
and you and another old man over there, Kenny. Huh?
Yeah. What a trio.
We'll go to lunch.
Okay, you're on there.
We're on. Larsen's coming home for baseball, and we'll do it. Take a break? Close up? What are we going to do? Okay. Coming up, and Tancredo's coming on the show, and the boys are coming on. And do you want to? And what is your best radio memory? Because remember when? Here's one. You had a picture of your father's motorcycle.
That's right.
Tell that story.
My dad rode motorcycles, I mean, since before I can remember, and I think he finally stopped riding at about 85.
That's what I plan on doing.
Yeah, I hope so you do, yeah. Dad had artificial knees, and he said, you know, I'm sitting at a stoplight. I never know if I'm going to be able to hold it up anymore.
Yeah.
So he finally stopped riding. But he had, well, he started with Indians way back.
Yeah.
And we found a picture of one of his motorcycles sitting out in the yard.
In a farmyard.
In a farmyard in Nebraska. Chickens around the motorcycle.
It's a great shot.
And I brought it in to show you, and I didn't know what kind it was, and you couldn't identify it. And so you just turned it loose to all your biker friends. And
We
so
put it
forth.
on the
Put
internet.
it online. Yep.
Put it on the internet.
And we finally found out some information about the bike, but
It was your dad's Indian. It was an old tank shift Indian.
Yep.
Had chickens, and there was a barn in the back. I remember it so well.
absolutely,
He must.
absolutely.
Any guy like that's all right with me.
That's right.
Aye. Are we getting? What are we going to do? Again, one of those things because people come and go. This is, well, the last time.
Yeah.
Hard to believe.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
But it's, and there's like no sorrow. It's just everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you and I know it.
You know, I've heard a lot of people talking about your radio savvy and knowing what was the good story. And I've got to say, Pete, that when it came to the big stories, you were a pit bull with lockjaw. Because, boy, you would lock onto a story and you would make it work.
When I wanted to go to Haiti, and he said, okay, I'll go with you. Let's go to Haiti. All right.
Yeah.
Kenny was fearless.
And as I remember, we took brand new equipment that we
Yeah,
hadn't
oh,
used
yeah.
before.
Yeah.
And I was back at the station just sweating bullets.
Yeah.
And strangely enough, we were able to pull it off
Pulled
for
it
the
off.
most part.
We pulled it off.
Because the Wi-Fi wasn't real good down there.
Nothing was real good down there, but I'll tell you, Kenny's got a heart of a champion. We went to every one of those haunted houses, went on remotes, never backed down. Kenny never backed down. You never backed down.
Yeah.
And I would think that was part of it. You know, you put your chin in the wind and see what they're going to do with it. But we never said, you know, never backed away, and we're always willing.
Well, we were never smart enough to know that we couldn't
There you
do
go.
it.
I think that's the difference. There was
So we just went ahead and did it.
one of my favorite books is The Shootist, and the same guy that wrote Bless the Beast and the Children wrote The Shootist.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a moment in the book with the old gunfighter. His name is John Bernard Brooks, and the kid in the barn who Ronnie Howard played in the movie, and Brooks was good for like 23 guys, whatever that number was. He said to Brooks, and he said, Mr. Brooks, he said, how did you manage to kill all of those people? And Brooks responded, well, I was willing. And
There you go.
I said, when he's thinking about it, I already know I'm going to kill him. So I love you.
Thank you, brother.
We were willing.
Feel the same way.
All right.
You're the best.
It's 25 after the hour. We breaking, buddy?
No, Tancredo.
Oh,
I know.
At 25 after the hour, if there's ever anyone who ruined my life and influenced me to a better degree, it's this guy. Please say good morning and welcome to the radio show, the one, the only. I can't tell you how much I love and admire him. Tom Tancredo. Give him a hand. Tommy.
Good morning, buddy.
Hey, man. It's been written now. You're going through a struggle, and I'm trying to remember when I met you, whether you were in the house or you were working. You were Ronald Reagan's guy. What was it when we first met?
My gosh, I was in the house. I'm almost sure. Yeah, it's so long ago I hardly remember, but I think I was in the U.S. House. I mean the State House.
And you came over, yeah, and you came to the radio station, and I just fell in love with you. I said, this guy's like the best. And we started a career pretty much, we ran it together, man. We ran it hard.
Absolutely. It was great. It was great fun, buddy. Great fun.
And we showed them.
I don't know what the United States is going to do without us now, if we're really.
You know,
I mean, who's going to raise as much hell as we did?
Well, that's right. I mean, the great line from Winston Churchill, he said, graveyards are full of irreplaceable men. And it's true. It's how does being retired feel?
Oh, great.
Yeah,
it is. Retirement is terrific.
And you know,
cancer isn't, but terrific. But retirement is. And I never looked back, honestly. When I left Congress, I never ever looked back and said, "Oh, gee." But I'm kind of that way. I mean, it's like when you finish a chapter in a book. I mean, I turn it over. I don't read it to the end. And it's the same way with life. You figure you close a chapter, and you should never look back.
Yeah.
And I don't. I mean, I don't know why exactly. I don't force myself to not look back. I just don't. It's not productive, and certainly, I mean, you know, because one of the things I think is important, Peter, is to know when to leave and then know when to quit, and you do now. And the best thing about being that way, not looking back, is that you have finished a job. I mean, when I got to the 10th year in the Congress, I knew I had done everything I could do there. And now there are a lot of my ex-colleagues I know who never think that they could do enough, and will be there forever. But it's just not me. When I got to the end, I got to the end. I knew I couldn't. You know, I mean, I probably burned every bridge that I had in Congress, and
never was me.
And I knew I wasn't going to get anything done because of the way that the leadership felt about me. So it was over. That's all there was to it.
Well, you never. All I can say in this final half-hour radio, Tom, I love you. I thank you for everything. I thank you what you've done for my family, how close we've become, and for the lunches that'll resume ASAP. DeAngelis is here. Everybody's chomping to get the lunch back together, and
yeah,
we will do it.
I can do it. I can most days.
I love you. Our conversations, our personal one-on-one conversations, life and times conversations, they're a fortune to me, and you've been a true guide. You've been a wonderful guide and a wonderful friend. The best to Jackie, who I have no idea why she continues to be married to you. Thanks, Congressman. Love you.
And thank you. And thank you for everything.
Oh,
thank you for being my friend.
Thank you for being mine. All right, it's 9:30. I don't know what turns next, but it will. Let's take a quick turnaround. Final half hour. Highs in the 50s today, light rain, the View House, I-25 at Arapahoe Road. What a great place. 710 KNUS right back. Guys, is John Bandemere. John Bandemere is one of the finest men I've ever known in my life. Johnny, stand up, just wave for a second, because that really is the man. He has been so terrific to me and to my family at everything he's done. Now, because we could do this I wanted to do actually to 11 o'clock, and they told me no. Sitting next to me is one of my dearest friends I've ever had in my life, who has been through the crucible. He has really paid a price. Ladies and gentlemen, when I say who it is Frank DeAngelis from Columbine High School. Now, we met, we were talking about doing stuff together, And I was asked to go to a lunch. You take over from there.
Well, the first year after Columbine, I made the radio station every morning with Peter, and it wasn't the kindest. And the narrative was not accurate. And I called him up and I said, Mr. Boyles, I listened to your show, I respect you, but let's have breakfast together, and after we sit down, or lunch together, and after we do that, if you feel the same way, then I'm fair game. And so we ended up meeting at 5280 in Littleton, and we spent 3 hours together. And he apologized, and he said, Frank, I am sorry for the narrative. And he said, you need to come on my show, and we're going to change that. And that changed my career, and it helped me because he was the voice. And I'll never forget the show that I went on, and Peter said, we're not going to take any callers. And all of a sudden, the producer is waving through there, and Peter says, no caller. And he said, you got to take this. And a young man, a father came on and said, Frank, thank you for saving my daughter that day at Columbine. And Peter and I are in tears. And so he started my career where it needed to be to resume. So I'm eternally grateful to you, Peter, for everything.
Well, I'll tell you my DeAngelis story. A woman came up to Frank at a high school soccer game, and I'll cry, and she said, you see that little girl out there playing? And Frank said, yeah. I always call him Coach. Coach said, yeah. And she said, well, she wouldn't be here if you hadn't opened that door. And there's a DeAngelis story that DeAngelis carried a ring of keys. How many keys were in that ring, Coach?
About 35 keys.
He runs to the door. He can see one of the killers. You take it from here.
Gunman's coming towards me, and the girls were unaware. And this was before we did all the drills. The only drills we did back then were fire drills. So I knew if I got him into the gym and then possibly get him outside, and everything was going as planned. But I pull on the gym door, and it's locked. And gunman is literally coming around the corner. I mean, we're in trouble. I had about 35 keys on a key ring, and the first key I stuck in the door, it opened it on the first try, or there's a good possibility I wouldn't be sitting here.
Think of that. And how many times did you try to replicate that?
The 15 years I stayed until I retired and could never do it.
It worked the first time. That's a DeAngelis story. And we have become friends. We're family friends. We did Emily's parade. I think Kris is still here. We're sitting at Christine's office, and John Michael Keyes, you show up. And I can't tell you, I mean, this guy shows. And he said, yeah, we can do it. And we did a parade, and we talked about there would be like, it was me and you and your brother, who I love. We're standing at the gates of Columbine thinking 6 bikes will show up. How many?
We had 3,000 bikes.
True story.
And literally, when the last bike left Columbine, the first bike was arriving up at Flat Canyon.
True story. I'm looking at DeAngelis, and we're seeing motorcycle after motorcycle after motorcycle, and we had no idea. And it worked. Here's another rare treat. Those of you who have listened to talk radio, and this is my guy. Ladies and gentlemen, the Black Avenger, Kenny Hamblin.
Well, Peter, it's the end of an era.
Me and you, Mike Rosen. God.
Allen Berg, Gary Tesler, Andrea Van Steenhouse. I know.
Oh, you know, you look great. I mean,
I've got macular hole.
I saw that. I thought you were being Sammy Davis Jr. when you
No, that's a good shot.
That's a good jock, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I love it. But no, I'm good. And hey,
we're here.
We never rode together.
No, we
I'm
didn't.
still riding my Softail.
I know. I'm still riding my road. I threw a Road King and now a Street Glide. But I got to tell you a story about Kenny. Somebody hires Kenny and I to go give a speech someplace. You're driving. Hamblin always wears hats. Always wears hats. And his dad was a cop in New York named Wahoo, who was a Barney badass. All the stories that, you don't even have to tell the stories. Other people say, oh, Wahoo. And then they roll their eyes because they didn't mess with Wahoo.
Peter, you know what?
No, let me tell you.
Those are all wonderful memories, but, you know, Peter and I first met in the hallway on Lincoln at KOA.
That's true.
And, you know, there it was Berg. I mean, I was this turkey. And I walked in there, and I thought, wow, Allen Berg, Peter Boyles, Allen Berg. Yeah, some other guy named Tesler, but Allen Berg, Peter Boyles. And it was like, it was big time for me.
It was big time.
And then I started saying things, and
I've described that period of time up until we lost him. we were the princes of the city.
We were.
There was no competition. It was a 50,000 watt clear channel. You could get it in your teeth radio station. Kris Olinger was the boss. Lee Larsen was on the radio show. We're working for Joel Day.
Yeah.
And we killed it. I mean, you must have had like a 23 at night. I mean, you must have that meant that.
Oh, God.
I mean,
I was doing 8 to midnight, and I'd come home, and I would have a scotch, and my wife would be sitting there in bed looking at me, and she wants to know what's wrong with this relationship. It was, it was a great time. I mean, then, of course, we got to mention Berg.
Oh, yeah.
Lee Larsen always says not to worship at that altar, but just like the gentleman to
Frank,
your right,
heavens.
it's a life changer. It's something that you never forget, that moment. And I was on the air that night, and there was that scene from Rod Steiger's The Twilight Zone with the figure twirling down the hole. And that really actually happened. I sat in that studio, and I fell in through an infinity, and it changes you.
It was never
when there's a murder, whether it's a son or a friend, a neighbor, it's something that's always with you. You can get rid of a tat, but you can't get rid of that experience.
I've said this about that moment, and Kenny was on air when it blew. It was never the same.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
I mean, if there was a golden era, it ended that night, and everything else is aftermath. And my son's here, and he was as old as my grandson, and he's now, as a man, told me how impactful that was on his life as a young boy to have. And he knew him. He knew Allen came to the house, and so I don't want to end it on that.
But there are other things, good things, too. There was Berg and I who fought like two alley cats. And it was funny because Jim Hawthorne put us together. He called, first of all, Peter and Andrea, and I think Mike was there. And
Mike was at 710.
Okay, he was, okay. But they would put me at the back of the line. Of course, I never applied anything racial to it. But it was basically because Allen and I would fight. I would follow Allen, and Allen was a smoker, and Allen would leave an ashtray full of tobacco butts and everything. And so we would go at each other, and Allen Berg would refer to me as, okay, Mr. Hotshot. Yeah. And so Jim Hawthorne, Peter would duff out.
I would leave.
He's gone. Everybody would leave us.
These guys, fine, because I got to wrap. I've got 15 minutes left.
All right.
We're in a boardroom, General Electric's boardroom. And I learned that we go to these meetings with AB and Kenny, and Kathy Bradshaw was throwing switches for me. And as soon as it would be like open lines meeting, I said, come on, Bradshaw, we got no bit. And we'd leave. And these two guys would be up like standing, screaming at each other. I'm going, this is radio.
Well, he would start a fire in the studio.
Of course he would. They got to jump it. Oh, no? Okay, now I'm being told two more stories. Two more stories, and one from Frank. So this time thing is changing here quickly.
Up to Vail, the ski deal. So we go up to Vail. Hawthorne puts us together. You guys are going to ride together. You're going to get together. So we get up there. Allen Berg's wearing leather shoes. It's ice up in Vail. And I'll go cut to the story. Allen says to me, I'm a turkey. I'm learning. And he says, okay, what position do you want? I said, what are you talking about? He says, just pick a position. Are you pro or con? I said, well, what are you? Breastfeeding. Where do you stand on breastfeeding? And I say, well, breastfeeding's normal. Okay. So we get on the switch on the mic, and Allen Berg says, it's Ken Hamblin and Allen Berg up at the Vail ski, blah, blah, blah. And I got to tell you what we saw last night. There is this woman sitting in the lodge, and she has got a baby, and her boobie is sticking out. And she's feeding this baby, and I'm going, Allen, breastfeeding is perfectly no. You just keep quiet. And let me tell you, and he finished up with the punchline, and she had on go-go boots, okay? Well, the phone lit up. I mean, every line lit up. And the first woman who's the caller says, Allen, who is that guy? He is wrong. And we switched off, and Allen said to me, you see, I told you. Okay.
We got it. All right, final one. And this is not, we'll be together for MC1 and everything else we do. People don't know what a hell of a guy you are. And you have been a one of a kind in my life. And it's just final 13 minutes on a radio. And to have you sitting next to me means everything to me. So you need to know that.
Well,
yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
And whenever times got tough, I got a text or a phone call for you, and I knew you always had my back. And I remember the conversation we had when you had your stroke.
Oh, yeah.
And we've been there, and I'm looking forward to the lunches and
Watch.
journeys, and I love you dearly.
Like to get Tancredo out of this, and we'll try and make him buy.
That's going to be tough.
Kenny Hamblin and Frank DeAngelis, both you guys, please. All right.
Thank you.
I think, got the boys? Okay. The guys are going to come and wrap it up. Light 50s and light rain, and George Brockler, who is here. George, on Monday morning, it's George Brockler's show. And like I said, there's no, watch this. So when I came over to 710 KNUS, I got these two knuckleheads. Casey Bloyer is here, and of course, the one and only Billy Thorpe. I love you. Both of you are like having kids. You know, I got 3 children here, Morgan and you two, and then I'm my grandson. So I can't tell you what you mean. Case, what do you think?
What a run, man. What a run. What do you say to somebody that has meant that much to your life? I mean, legend gets thrown around a lot. I've said this on Stephen Tubbs' show yesterday, but it gets overused and oversaid, but not in the case of this gentleman next to me. The Colorado media scene would not be the same, and you can't tell the story of Colorado media without Peter Boyles. And as much as he is a great radio host, it's nothing compared to the man he is. And how you've done and what you've done to treat my family and us. You're part of my family. I'm part of yours. We always will be. I love you, Pete.
I love you. Your brother's here, too, Pastor Scott. The only guy that ever bounces on a St. Patrick's Day in Butte, Montana. I said, this guy really is a hard ass. Billy, you and I worked together on 2 times. We worked at KHW together, and then I caught a break when this guy bails out to become a beer baron.
Yeah.
And you come in.
It was special. I mean, I got to tell you, Pete, that getting a chance to have a second tour of duty with you was something remarkable. Basically, it's the most memorable and the most impactful time of my 3 decades in radio. Now, without the solid foundation that you and Casey built, there's no way that you and I would have had the ratings and revenue success that we did. Casey, I owe you. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, man. Now, you know, Pete, maybe someday you and I will pull back the curtain and we will explain to that portion of the audience that hates my guts that was exactly the point. See, I needed you to hate me. That was a very important piece to the puzzle for how we were going to win. We set out not to be everybody's favorite morning radio show. We set out to be the radio show you couldn't ignore, and we did it. Yeah. We put that championship belt around your waist one last time, and in the process, we made Denver radio history. So here's the thing, that the bottom line, everything that I did was to make sure that when it was time, when you felt you wanted to get on your Harley and ride off into the distance, that everyone in Denver radio knew that Peter Boyles is the man. I love you.
I got a break from Dan Hopkins, who's had to leave. He's the traffic reporter guy doesn't show up, and it's the morning of my daughter's birthday. She's here somewhere, and I went on the air, and I met Bob Lee. And Bob Lee, we teamed up because of Bob Prangley, and we had a morning show on KLAK. We went from like 26 in the market to 2 in the market in 2 books. I didn't know how to act. I went from living in a house to buying a new home. I went from driving a leaky green Volkswagen to buying a new Corvette from Stevenson. We owned bars together. When I think of Bob Lee, it's like hear a steel guitar whining in the night. Started to rodeo, went to bull riding school. We jumped out of airplanes together. And then in the middle of all of that, I got John Mullins, and that goes back to Kenny and everybody else. They called me up and said, would you interested in doing talk radio? And I walked off of a pretty successful morning country show, and I started doing talk radio, and that's where I met Allen, and of course met Mike there, and GT, Gary Tesler was there, and I mean, just so many great people. And of course that folded, that got shot out from underneath us, and we did the infamous now Beg-a-thon, trying to raise money. And then because of Hal Moore, they said, you want to do 8 to midnight on KHOW in Petroleum Cult Building. That's where I met Phil Boyce. And we did that, and then AB went to KOA, and because he simply didn't want to get up. But Gary had left, and he called me up. He said, I want to talk to these guys. And I took the morning show, 9 to noon on KOA, and that was the time. I mean, that was, as Kenny would say, that was the golden moment. The broadcasting group came over and said, you want a lot of money to do a radio show on another radio station? I said, sure. I had a television show at the time, and I'm an alcoholic and an addict, and I was really into my disease. And then Allen has his life taken, and it changes everything. I can't tell you how much it changed. And I went and I gained my wellness. And my son is here, and my daughter is here, and my grandson's here. I went to May. I was a dead man walking. Went from there. Lee Larsen and Christine gave me the morning show on 760, waiting because they knew something's going to happen at KHOW. Hal Moore, who was the best disc jockey I ever heard in my life, Hal steps aside, and they give me mornings, and I had mornings for 20 years, went through the Ramseys, and I mean, just every conceivable great thing with Darrel and Kenny and Lee and Christine, and Mike's across the hall, and Gus Merkus is alive, and then I did what I did, and Brian Taylor, who's in the back of the room, I'm sitting there going, okay, what's next? And I get a call, and they said, we'd like to have lunch with you, and it was Kelly Michaels, and it was Brian Taylor, and to Phil Boyce's credit, and they said, okay, we'll give you a shot. And I walk in the door, and here's this kid, and he says to me, he said, do you mind if I don't stay with you and I go to work on afternoons? I said, no, do what you want to do. Show's over at 9 o'clock. He says, I think I'd like to stay. and then he's become a beer baron, and then I can say this about Billy with my son sitting here. I'm the only guy that ever took his kids to the Ozfest. And I took my son Morgan, your brother. How old was your brother?
Maybe 12.
And how old were you?
It was an experience.
Morgan, how old were you?
You learned some new
took
words.
Off. But I'm trying, because I can't see through the lights, but we went to the Ozfest, and I'm backstage, and it was during the Ramseys, and these guys, Ozzy wants to talk to me about the Ramseys, and I'm talking to all these guys, and then we sort of wrapped it, and I don't know, my children are now adults, and I want to special thank Mark Crowley, who's sitting right over here. Mark Crowley and I'm making my bones at the AAA Auto Club doing traffic reports, and Marky, who spent 30, how many years, Mark, on the cops? 33 years on the cops. He's a dispatcher. He's not even a cop yet. He's dispatching tow trucks. And, hey, man, how you doing? How you doing? And then Mark's wife was married to, it was his sister, Greg Lopez, who was killed after John Coit passes. And so all these things sort of interplay. I was thinking about what I was going to say, and I think I was talking to my nephew last night. When I'm a little kid, I go to the movies, and my dad, I figured out why he was doing it. It was $1 for 4 of us to go to the movies, a quarter apiece. I think it's probably the only time my dad had alone with my mother. And in the end, I was the kid that when the credits are rolling, and it was always a double feature, I backed up the aisle. Other people walked up the aisle. I was watching, I liked it so much that I'm watching the credits and who the best boy was and who was the grips, and I'm walking backwards to keep the most of that experience with me. And with a couple minutes to go, that's how I feel right now. I'm walking backwards up the aisle, watching all of this, and I'm watching the credits roll. And I got to tell you, please don't be sad. I had a hell of a time. I mean, I had a great time. I got to do stuff that I like to show you the house that we grew up in, and my dad, and I wish he were here, and I wish my mom was here, and I can't tell you. I mean, there was times, and this is the truth. You had a glass of milk. You want it for breakfast? Do you want it for dinner? You pick, and that's what it was. And it was when my sister and I, when they played Dolly Parton, Hard Candy Christmas. That was real stuff. But here I am, this old guy with this great family, with these guys who will always be family, and everybody else. If you call me, I'll be there. If you ask me, I'll be there. And I look down, here's Corey Voorhees sitting there, and I look at a life that we saved. I mean, this radio show saved that guy's career. They were going to screw him and put him in jail, and we saved him. You look around, the people that, like Frank, I mean, Frank has become this inner person. These two guys, I mean, my son, my grandson, Dina, everybody that's here, it's a special moment. And to Brian Taylor and Kelly Michaels, you got me off the beach, man. I thought, is this like the end of, is this really the end of Rico when he's standing behind that billboard and they shot him? And is this the end of Rico? Edward G. Robinson. And it's not the end. It's a new chapter, and stuff will happen. I'm going to stay with Brian, and Mark and I will continue to do the shoot, and I'll do voiceover stuff and spots and ads, and I'll still write for Chuck and Julie at the magazine. And so this is where the cowboy rides away. I'm not sad. I'm glad. I had a shot. You know, we don't get shots often, and better yet, when someone once said there's no second acts, that's a total lie. I've had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've had 100 second shots, and you know, I don't know more what to say except this was a hell of a time. This business is a great business. When I listen to people lambast the radio business, I man, let it go. This business gave me a life. It gave me things that I would have never imagined. And I was thinking with Kenny sitting over there, me and Kenny Danon taking showers on a roof in Haiti and taking our clothes off because there was no water. And remember the gangs controlled the gas pumps, and I mean, and everybody's loaded up with a gun and all this crazy. And it's like the Middle East, and everybody's got a gun, and everybody's got guns. There it is. I love you all. Thank you so much.
Sponsored by